Okay, hello, welcome everybody to my second open source maintenance stream, my second stream on every Friday. And yeah, welcome. I saw that multiple people have followed me in the past, so welcome and thank you for following to Mods 2010. Also thank you to Aishayan18, to President Not Sure 1, and to Pass. Thank you all of you for following me. And I hope it's going to be useful to watch my streams. So in this stream, we're always talking on this Friday stream, not on the Wednesday, but we're always looking at some open source work that I've done and trying to provide some work for the open source community. And we did last time some work on my open source tool named BartyCrouch, which you can find on GitHub under flyingsoft/BartyCrouch. And last time we basically summarized at the end of the stream what we did. So let's go through that before we get started and to see what we did and also what we can do next. But before we do that, I also want to quickly mention that I did a small kind of survey on Twitter because I had the idea after some discussions on Twitter that we could maybe introduce something to the stream, which could be me giving some other developers, or specifically in indie developers. Doesn't have to be indie, but probably makes more sense for them to just me having a look on their apps and just downloading it, having like a first impressions kind of experience with their app. And so they can watch me while I'm having this experience, which is, I think, a great opportunity to learn how users are getting a first impression on your app. And then also to somehow give feedback from my point of view on maybe what could be improved or what was great about the onboarding experience, about the main screens that I found there and things like that. And the survey basically had 3 parts, which was I'm not interested, I'm interested. Oh, let's actually have a look at the survey. Not many people participated, but I think it's still useful to have a look. And if we just go, so follow me also on Twitter if you don't do that, just jihad there as well. And the survey basically is this one here, and some people participated, and basically I just asked if people would be interested in me doing that kind of feedback. And the results, I wanted to know also if you just wanted to have feedback or also something like kind of a rating, so that I say like, okay, I did give this app 3 stars for their design part, for example, or 2 stars for their functionality, for the concept, whatever. I will have to think about this. And as the response basically was very positive, so everybody who did participate was interested. And also most of them also wanted me to do some kind of rating. So I will try to prepare something like that until next stream. So next stream is next week on Wednesday, where I will be continuing working on my open source app project, Open Focus Timer, which is always in the Wednesday streams. And yeah, I think at the start of the stream, we will just have a look into 1 or 2 apps. So I will also try to get some people who might want to actually, want me to have a look at their apps and to have like a first experience kind of thing. And giving feedback, I think, is not only interesting for the developer of the application, but it could also be interesting to basically everyone else who is doing something like that, to see how I think of things. I will also not try to like read every screen in detail. For example, in the onboarding, I would try to act like a normal user would. So I'm going to skim through the screens and things like that to give you an impression of how most users, I think, could be downloading and looking into your apps. I think there's something to learn there, and I hope that's going to be useful to some developers out there, especially like developers just starting out as iOS developers. I'm pretty sure that I can share some of my learnings from my past years with them. So that's that, and I'm going to start this, and I have to do some preparations for that before we can. But let's get to the summary of last week's stream. So last week we worked on BartyCrouch maintenance. We have 4 parts here: progress, problems, learnings, and next steps. So we closed 3 issues on the BartyCrouch GitHub repository. We merged 1 pull request. Then we prioritized and answered 9 more open issues. So they are not closed, but we have done some work there to bring them forward. Then we created a new work in progress pull request. I'm assuming that this is something we need to continue working on, but we'll see down there. Then we have problems. We had problems. One was that Swift syntax, which is a library from Apple actually, prevented BartyCrouch from running through Xcode for debugging purposes. So there was an issue with Xcode paths and things like that with Swift syntax. Then we couldn't reproduce the Siri intent translation situation that was reported by one of the pull requests, and we actually wrote there. So we should probably have a look at that before I forget, because I'm not sure if this is here. Yeah, let's write it to the next steps. Build errors, yeah, check if new info provided for Siri intent PR. Cool. Then we worked. We had the problem with SwiftLint that it caused basically issues on this. No, SwiftLint issues caused CI to fail. So our continuous integration failed on GitHub, and basically consider setting a pre-commit hook. That was basically the solution we wanted to do there. Learning. So find unused translation keys via periphery plus SwiftGen. That was learning. Let's click on that. Yeah, that was basically an idea, not a learning in that case. So we had the idea that maybe we could write some kind of article about how to combine periphery and SwiftGen to make sure that you never have any translations that you're not using in your app. So leftover translation or old translations, unused translations, finding them. Maybe it makes sense to make a blog post about it related to BartyCrouch. That was the idea we wrote down. Then we have the next steps, continue working on the work in pull request, which makes sense. So we have to first fix the build errors. So we have build errors there. And we have extracted a new option, and that's where the build errors come from. Then we want to add another option for the info PL is static string. So we still have some static strings. We have to extract that into an option. Then we want to make obviously a new BartyCrouch release with the changes from this pull request and also the other merged one. And this is the one thing that we could actually do first, just to have a look if there's any new info provided. And that's basically the plan that we created last time for this time. And we don't have to stick to that plan, but that's the ideas we can start with. And I think it makes sense to just do these things. So I will just get right started with the first one. So let's go to GitHub and just open the BartyCrouch repository and see if in the pull request that was about intent definition files. So this is the continuation. This is the pull request I had created last time where I continue. And the real comment here was here. No info provided here. And this is my last comment where I asked for some more input and there was no new input provided yet. But I see that somebody, so R. Sickenberg, has basically seen this pull request, let's put it like that. But not provided any extra info. So I can't continue here because I still don't know. Maybe we can check it out sometime later to retry reproducing it, but I couldn't reproduce last time. So I will just wait for more input there. So this is basically done. And we can actually start a new summary for today. Let me open a new Notion window here. Let's start summary for today. And just as a reminder, these kinds of summaries, we're doing them in Notion now, but we want to move them to the Open Focus Timer, which we're developing on Wednesdays. So that's one of the purposes of the Open Focus Timer. Cool. So today, BartyCrouch maintenance part 2, I would say. Open source project is GitHub. But we can add that later. So check if new info provided. No new inputs. Next, we want to continue on a pull request, and let's get started with that. So let's have a look at that on GitHub. Make all static string in project configurable. That's exactly the pull request, and you can see also that the CI fails. I'm guessing that's because of the build errors that we have in this project. Let's open the project through our Git GUI tool. And this is BartyCrouch, And this is the feature branch that we were working on. So let me open that in Xcode. Okay, this is the project and we can already see that it was failing. Let's try building anyways. BartyCrouch package. Build, it's failing, and there's lots of to do. So yeah, let's just continue there. Let's try fix them. So we were right in the middle of this feature. And also let me see if there is like a commit. It's already committed. Let's go into unfinished. Okay, this is a commit, add options, subpaths to ignore. This is the new option we want to add in this commit to make the ignored subpaths explicit. And it's related to the issue. We also mentioned that. And maybe we can just make this, remove this, and we can at the end amend all the changes we do now, which makes that build again to this stream. Okay, we have find all IB files here. Let's start at the top. I think it makes sense. Subpaths to ignore needs to be provided here. We have it here as a parameter, no actor interface. Okay, it's like jumping right into the project. Maybe we start at the top, which is the options we specify. So we have code options, and we have added in the code options, we subpaths to ignore. That's basically what we added here. This is new. We also added it here with the default. We added it here, so this is clear. And we have the interfaces options, which also has this now. Same here, looks good. The normalize option, we don't have it here. Don't we need it here? Or I guess we will need that here as well. Let's make it consistent. Oh, this project was with 4 white spaces. Going to be a hassle. Let's just add them all. Normalize options, terminal area interfaces. This is normalize. The path to ignore, this makes sense. And lastly here too. And subpaths to ignore, we have it here already. It's here too. It's here too, this looks good. Translate options, subpaths to ignore. Yeah, I think it should be here as well, why not? Probably last time I wasn't sure if we need it everywhere, but I think we would need that everywhere. So let's add it everywhere. Same here, let's just copy that. Oh, this is different. How's this different? So this is update, translate. It has multiple levels. Oh, that's normal. Why does this look so different? Terminal string, secret string. Okay, let's compare. So we're creating the transform options all together. Here we're creating the translate options in the end. Okay, that's why it looks different. Question is, do we want to change that to make it more consistent? We can't. That's because we have the switch here. That's why we can't, and that should be fine. Easy enough to adjust. So paths. It's a little bit different. Let's paths to ignore equals. Everything else should be the same, except for the translator. We need to be transformed to be translate, and then we can pass this here too. Okay, this might not fit into one line anymore. Yeah, it doesn't. Let's make this a little more readable. Cool. We've added it here. Now lastly, we need to add it there as well. Pen paths, secret. I think right after paths makes sense. There we go. So we've done all the things in the options. Let's build and see if we have any errors in options. We do. This needs to be a var. That cannot appear nested in. Oh, I have a comma here. That looks good. No errors here, no errors there. Cool. So this is now working. And we want to continue with the build errors now. So command line actor. Okay, let's go to simpler situations. So in here, incremental code updates, it says it's missing the subpaths to ignore. On this feature, this function, let's go to the export function. Okay, doesn't work. Code commander. This is the export function. And we have a new field here called subpaths to ignore at the end. So let's add that. Subpaths to ignore. Do we have it here passed down? We don't, so we might need to add it here as well. And then we just pass it down here. Build again. This error is fixed. We're missing it here now. Missing argument subpaths to ignore and call for find all strings files. Let's make that more readable by putting them into their own files. And then we have subpaths to ignore here. We need it here as well now. Probably we should add it here right after paths. Okay, let's build again. That is going to continue for a while until we have fixed them all. But it should be doable. Same here. Let's do that a little more readable style and fit it into 120 characters with next build, next error to fix. And let's add it here again. And let's make it multiple lines parameters. So we fit it into the line again. And same here. Kind of repetitive work here. Subpaths to ignore. Let's also split that into multiple lines. Cool. Next build. And last but not least, this should be the last one. Same here. It's also more readable when every parameter is on its own line. Not only that it fits into the line then. And we have to add it here too. Subpaths to ignore. This time it fits actually into one line. But it's saying something is missing. I don't think this is a wrong error, but this one needs subpaths to ignore at the end. I think it shouldn't be at the end, so let's try to move it elsewhere. Incremental code update. Incremental code update. There we go. We should not put it at the end, but more like here, I guess. Subpaths to ignore, subpaths to ignore, and it's at the right place here. So one build error left, editor placeholder, but there is no editor placeholder. I think this is a leftover. Let's fix the other ones and then it should disappear as well. We need subpaths to ignore here. Translate task performer. Okay, we need to somehow find the option, which should be in the options. Subpaths to ignore. There we go. Same here. Oops, sub paths to ignore. Okay, this doesn't have any options, sub paths to ignore. This is a lint task. Lint options. Where's our... Oh, we just added them to the other ones. So let's copy them also to these options. Lint options, sub paths to ignore. And we have to add the same things here too. And it's called lint. And it doesn't have a second path, does it? Yeah, it doesn't. This is that. And let's add it to the generation here as well. There we go. Do we need the same for update? No, the update ones are in the set paths here. So let's go back to our build failing. Let's build. And this is a lint at that's where it was missing. Now we get our completion there too. And last but not least on code task handler. Sub paths to ignore, options, sub paths to ignore. Wow, build fail. Oh, okay, one more last place missing. Test translate task handler with configured secret. Macro translate source locale. So it does search in these paths, but it always searches in this path. This is also a constant, I would say. Test. But this is a test. Okay, this is for tests anyways. Yeah, that should be fine. So I'm just missing this sub paths to ignore here, which I could just give in an empty array. This is also in tests. Now it's building. That's great. And this is just showing this is an overleft error. If I clean build, I think this should also disappear. Great, this looks much better and looks like closer to be able to get to be committed. Let's add these changes. It looks like a lot, but we're just adding a new option, sub paths to ignore, all down the entire the entire stack. We're passing it down all the way down to the different functions. Just making sure that we didn't forget anything here. So in this case, we also changed the ignore keys. I'm guessing that was on purpose. Paths to ignore. Maybe we'll test this entire feature at the end, just to make sure that everything continues to work. And I'm saying by saying testing, I mean really manual testing, because that's like going to cover the whole thing. Ah, okay, this is now the list that we have extracted the defaults to. And this is also default ignore keys. Looks good. Looking good too. Okay, we have added this. Let's check this out. Looks like there is 2 white spaces there, which I don't like to have in my code anywhere. So this looks better to me. But still, oh, that's kind of, okay, that's better. Demo tests. Just the edit subpath. Array. Just passing it down. Cool. Looking good. So this can be committed now. And I'm going to do a force push. I hope that this works. Yeah, cool. And we actually should have a pull request that the checks here are running again. And they are just about to start. So there we go. We can see them running and we'll see if everything works. And I think one of the things that we wrote down was that SwiftLint issues cause CI to fail. And we didn't have it as a pre-commit hook. Don't we still have it as a pre-commit hook? Let's have a look at that. Let's open the project in Atom. So we get to see all the hidden files, etc. as well. And I want to know if in Git there's no pre-commit hooks. So that's something we could do. And let's have a look at what exactly of a command we're running with SwiftLint. This is the CI setup for GitHub Actions and the different steps that are running on the CI. And here we're just saying run SwiftLint with a strict mode. So basically we're just running SwiftLint. And we don't have a build script here. Let's just do it the simple way. So I'll just create a new file under hooks / pre-commit. And then I just want to run SwiftLint here, but with the strict mode, like on the CI. And just to test out if that works, let's run it manually on the project SwiftLint strict. Yeah, it does work. And also we do have some errors here, so we do need to fix some things, which is great to know, because we just could commit, but we shouldn't actually. So this is SwiftLint strict, and we want to run it on every pre-commit. For that, we first need to... Ahoy Jihad, happy coding! Welcome Big Batson, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Happy coding to us all. How are you doing? How's your day going? So you're still working right now? Okay, we need to first make the pre-commit hook a executable file. So let's change the mod of that file by going into .git/hooks. Okay, that doesn't work. I mean .git, sorry, and then hooks, and then pre-commit, and then change mod to executable, which means +x, like executable. Now we can execute it, and now it should also work automatically whenever we commit. So let's try amend this and let's recommit. And this should actually run SwiftLint and it should fail, which is exactly what's happening here. It's running and it's giving us the errors here. Okay, so we have a line length violation on transform task handler line 17. Yes, still working, but in the process of going early. Yeah, that's great. Friday going early, I think, is definitely always a good idea. Early start to the weekend. How about Pokemon? Are you going to play Pokemon? Like at home? Or do you plan to wait until it's out on the Switch? Okay, transform task handler line 17 and 35. So transform task handler line 17. It's this one. Yeah, this is too long, obviously. How can I make this shorter? This is the actual call. Oh, that's not great. Okay, let's actually extract this from the for in loop into variable. So we have it like here. I don't know what name to give yet. It's the code file search. Let's just say, oh, it's the code files. Code files. In code files. And then we can make it more readable here, which is the call. Okay, actually this is two calls. Let's bring this into a new line. Maybe something like that should fix it. It's really tempting to play right now since the emulator is working better than expected. I tried to restrain myself until the 28th with Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Yeah, that's also great. I'm going to watch your next stream on Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. Do we have a plan to stream it sometime? Like today, tomorrow, or something like that? Okay, code files. This should fix the first one. And then we had also the same one for line 35. 35, which has moved down to here. Okay, same problem here. Let's extract this. So we're looking for code files here as well. So let's just do let code files. Just to store it here, and then let's break it down to multiple lines. There we go. This should fix it here as well. Code files. Okay, I think we have fixed the two SwiftLint warnings. And we have one more, strings file search, line 16. Function default parameter at end. Violation. Strings file search 16. So we're talking about this line, and it's basically saying that we have one with a default, which is the second, and we have another one that is the last. And SwiftLint wants the one that has a default to be always at the end. So let's just move this to be right here. and this should fix it. But of course now our project will fail because we have changed the order here. So let's build the project and see where it fails to adjust it there. And we have it here. Invalid redeclaration of code file. Oh, we have another problem here. We have this name twice. This was the code file search for let's actually make it a variable. I think that's the easiest solution here. That should work. Let's build again. Now it's failing. Okay, something else is also wrong. Cannot assign set to type string array. Okay. So yeah, they have different types. True. Then let's use the type here. Code files array. And this is code files set. Maybe today, but I operate like the German lottery. Yeah. Okay, I get it. But I have an eye on it, and if you stream, I'll definitely be looking into it. So how did you like it so far? You played yesterday, I think. How was it so far? Do you like it? Is it fun? And do you think I will like it? Code file set. Array. Cool. Let's build again. Now it's failing as expected, and we just have to change the order here as well. Let's make this the second parameter. It's building again, and we should have fixed this too, but let's continue with the next one. File searchable, line 13, same issue. File searchable, line 13. Okay. In this case, it's here. Let's move it up. Let's build, and then let's fix everywhere where we have the order. And I can actually see this is also too long. Let's actually fix that too. Cool, and let's move it up. Where else do we have it? Here too. Oh, this is also too long. Why is Swiftlet not failing here? For me, this is too long as well. And then let's move it up. And we have it elsewhere too. Let's build. Oh, we actually have it in multiple places. Call file search doesn't conform to file searchable. Yeah, because we have to change the order of the parameters here as well. Find code files, paths to ignore. Let's go back to file searchable. I will be in lurk right now doing some shopping till later. Go, have a good one. Thanks. File searchable. So we have changed the order here. Find all file paths. So everywhere we have find all file paths. We don't have it here. I don't understand why that's failing, but let's continue with the other ones. Changing the order everywhere. This one does not confirm. Do you want to add particle subs? I think we need this. We already have this. Find all strings files. Find all file paths was the name, right? File searchable. Okay, file searchable has this function find all file paths as an extension, but it expects this, and this is the wrong order. Now I get it. That was the issue. Cool. And this now just needs to move up. And this also needs to move up. Let's build again, and now it's building. Cool, whatever. Okay, I think we have all Swiftlint errors here. Let's see if we have them all by just recommitting. But we should actually see some changes here. Yeah, there we go. So this is the change of order. Same here, same here, same here, same here. Let's recommit. And again, the commit failed, so Swiftland found another issue, and it's in transform task handler 3938 with multi-line arguments and closure. So it's stating multi-line arguments should have their surrounding brackets in a new line. Closure and should have the same in the name. Okay, something wrong with transform task handler line 39. Transform task handler line 39. Okay. Ah, yeah, we're opening up the here a brace, and then we're closing it on a different line. This is of course not great. So what we want to actually do is, I would say we just do it this way. So this is the call to the set, right? Then we have the options code path flat map. This is a new closure. Let's do that. So opening, closing, and everything else should be indented inside. And that, I think, makes it more readable and also more clear what we're doing here with the right indentations. And this should also fix the commit now. Okay, this doesn't always see the changes. So now it's seeing them, let's commit. And it's working. So now Swiftland is also passing. Sally Prosper, welcome to the stream. How are you? Thank you for following. How's your day going? Okay, BartyCrouch, we can now push it, and let's also recheck on the CI. I'm expecting the Swiftland to fail here as well, and it is failing. So let's push our changes with the fixes. You have to force push actually. Which IDE? Okay, I'm working with Xcode, which is the IDE of Apple for like development in Swift for iOS apps and things like that. I'm great. How are you doing? Are you working right now, or where are you watching from? That would be also very interesting to hear. You're watching from somewhere in Europe, from US? What's your country? US is unlikely actually. Very early time there right now. Okay, now we have pushed, and the CI should have been started running again. And this time Swiftland should actually not fail. I don't know why the macOS tests are failing, but let's actually run them ourselves. Let's see if the tests are running. Command U. Build succeeded, and we should see all the different tests here. So Sally Prosper, I'm using Xcode, and that's because it's like the official IDE. I'm doing native iOS development. I'm an iOS developer, and Xcode is the best IDE for native development because you always have the latest frameworks and all of that available here, because it's simply the official one. So somehow it's not running the BartyCrouch kit tests. Let's go there specifically. And let's build. Okay, running it. I think last time we also had this issue that running tests from Xcode didn't work. So let's go into the command line actually and just say Swift test here, which should run all the tests. And then we should actually see the same fails as on the CI. As the CI basically is also just running Swift test. There we go, one failure. And the failure is coming from, I think it's from BartyCrouch package tests. Is it? Is it somewhere more specific? There we go. So something with the configuration tests failed. Test configuration toml contents. Let's have a look at that. This is configuration tests. Are you developing Apple application? Actually, I'm developing iOS and macOS apps, but I have two different streams. I have one on Wednesdays and one on Fridays. And on the Wednesday stream, I'm actually currently developing an application. And if you want to see me doing that, you can just have a look at my videos on Twitch, because the Wednesday streams, they're also called Open Focus Timer. That's the app we're developing there. And let me actually write project here in the chat, so you can basically get the link to the project that we're working on and also the GitHub project. Basically on the Friday streams though, I'm doing some open source maintenance because I'm the maintainer of multiple open source projects that are used widely in the iOS community. And today we're working on one that is called BartyCrouch, which is about localization. And it's basically for iOS developers. So it's for Apple developers. But in this stream, we're not developing an app. Instead, we're developing a tool for developers who need it for developing apps. Or we are improving that tool. And that's what we're doing right now. And we have added some more options to that too. And I'm currently trying to finalize those and test that they're actually working. And yeah, we have one test here which is failing. We have to fix that. BartyCrouch kit configuration tests. BartyCrouch configuration tests. Let's go to configuration tests. And we have test configuration make default, which seemed to work. And then we have make non-default, it also worked. So the one that was failing is test configuration toml contents. It's this one here. And our test is stating that these toml contents, which is just a string here with the toml file, which is the configuration file in BartyCrouch, using the toml structure. And then it creates a toml with this string, and then it creates a configuration with this toml. And it expects that the output toml is the same as the one that we have added, used here to create that. And I think the reason why it's failing is because we have the new option we have added here, it's not here. So the new option would be the subpaths to ignore. And this is basically added to toml contents output, right? And this is for some reason not happening. So what we need to do is actually ignore keys was added and was passing. This might also need to be added to there. Well, let's go with this first. So I'm expecting actually everywhere we have paths to also have the subpaths to ignore, and the default I'm expecting to be in the constants, which is this list. So this way this becomes configurable. And this should actually be the output that I'm expecting. Same here. Same here. What are you naming it? What do you mean? Do you mean this tool? So this tool's name, it's already BartyCrouch, so I can show you quickly. This is already out there. Which other language are you using besides C? I'm not using C here. This is all Swift, so I'm developing this mostly in Swift. I am also fluent in some other languages, such as Ruby, because I was also doing some backend development in Ruby on Rails. And I am also kind of a not very senior, but still kind of an Android developer. And so I know the latest language there, which is Kotlin, which is also a great language. And I used to teach also in Java at the university, so I also know some Java. That's like the kind of languages I'm more or less fluent in that I can mention as programming languages. And the name is BartyCrouch of this tool. Maybe for the people who don't know, so BartyCrouch, let's go to that. BartyCrouch is actually a figure from Harry Potter. It's this person. And if you go just to his Harry Potter wiki, you'll see that, okay, this is German. Let's change it. How can I change it to English? I think this is the English one. Still not English. This is all German. Why is it all German? Anyways, basically it's a person in Harry Potter who speaks more than 100 languages, and that's where I got the name from, because this is related to translation and he is a good translator. You got awesome taste back there, thank you. We could be friends, definitely. You can feel free to follow me on Twitter, and yeah, you can find my Twitter account. It's just Twitter. Also GHut is my name there. So just follow me there, and then you can feel free to ping me anytime if you want to discuss something. Thank you for joining. Mr. Solyak, why have you stayed with Swift rather than Kotlin? So welcome to the stream, Mr. Solyak. I hope I said the name correctly. Why have I stayed with Swift rather than Kotlin? So Swift is a language that I'm developing with when I develop iOS applications, and Kotlin is the one that I use when I develop Android applications. And they are basically the recommended ones from Apple and from and also from Google for those platforms. So I try to use a language that is like the most sophisticated and most recommended one for the platform. And I'm trying to do native development. There's also some people out there who like to do cross-platform development, for example, by using Flutter. So if you want to check that out, there's also people streaming with Flutter. This is developed in Rust, so it's like a different language as far as I know. And yeah, this is with that you can develop on both platforms at the same time, but then it's not native development, and I always prefer native because it's like it's got all the access to the latest frameworks, the latest features that Apple and Google provide to developers. Instagram, yeah, I do have an Instagram. I'm not really posting there, and it's just like a private kind of Instagram to follow people. I'm not really posting anything there, so you should follow me on Twitter, or you can also follow me on GitHub or just here on Twitch. You think iOS development is more in demand comparing to Android? Okay, that's an interesting question. If the question is from a developer's point of view, I would say that at least for Android, there's much more competition. So if you're like in a situation where you want to decide for one platform or the other, I think let me post my handle. This is my handle on Twitter. So when you wanna, if you wanna become a developer and you're interested in mobile and you wanna decide you wanna be an Android developer or an iOS developer, if you become an Android developer, it's much easier to start because you will have not to buy a MacBook or something like that, or any Mac. So you can get a cheaper computer. And also, when you want to ship an app on the App Store, you have to pay Apple $100 US dollars per year to be able to ship an app there. And these are like two kind of hurdles, and mostly the Mac hurdle. That's like you need to have a Mac to do iOS development, and it's obviously much more. It costs more. So the problem is that most new developers, also in like countries that are like not less industrialized countries, they will all start doing Android development first. So you will have much more competition in the Android developer world. That's like my experience. I think there are fewer iOS developers, but in the end, the companies, they need both. They need both Android and iOS developers, roughly the same amount. And that's why I believe it's harder if you want to become an Android developer and get paid for that. I think it's harder to do that than as an iOS developer. That's just my point of view, but that would be my advice there. I don't know if that was what you wanted to know. Or Hackintosh, which I had, macOS is so rigid comparing to Windows, Linux when it comes to personalization. Yeah, macOS has, I would say, a different kind of approach. I think the goal of Apple is always to provide something that just works and has all the things that you need. And it makes it less customizable. At the same time, you don't have to customize many things. For example, you don't need a antivirus software and things like that. There's pros and cons for sure. But I can say that for developers, Macs are actually very, people even Android developers don't need to have a Mac. Many of them who I know who are professional Android developers, even they use Macs for their development. And speaking about Hackintosh, I've actually used a Hackintosh myself, but yeah, the experience is not pleasant in any way. So I would definitely not recommend developing or becoming a serious developer with a Hackintosh. I think it's going to be a hassle. It's not everything is going to work, and especially Xcode is tending to crash for sometimes anyways, and it will only get worse if you use a Hackintosh. I think it will crash even more, and you will not know if it's because you have a Hackintosh or if it's because just Xcode sometimes likes to crash. So that's definitely something I would recommend against. So my recommendation, if you want to start out, is actually what's cool is that even though Macs are really expensive, they are getting cheaper. So if you want to get like the cheapest one you can just get a Mac Mini. And actually, the Mac Mini used to be a very slow device, but now with the new M1 chip from Apple, which is a really, really fast chip, yeah, it's a matter of $699. I think that's the cheapest that it ever got to be able to develop Mac apps. I mean, you could get a Mac that's even cheaper than that, but it would be too slow to do real development. And now I think this is quite recommendable. So you can actually develop on a Mac Mini. And if you don't want to have that, if you want to have like a mobile one, the cheapest you can get is the MacBook Air. And again, I always recommend it against the MacBook Air because it was too slow. But now again, with the M1 chip in there, it's absolutely fast enough. It's really, really fast. And you can get by with $1,000 US, or if you can get it even for a lesser price elsewhere. Yeah, that's how you can get started today. Was it easy for you to switch to macOS, or have you used it from the very beginning? I actually used Windows for a long time, until 2010, I think, and then I got a MacBook. And the switching experience was quite easy. There was just like some articles I read on some kind of differences. Of course, there will be differences. And the biggest thing I see always when people switch to macOS is how they handle Windows. So you can see I have multiple windows open here. And I also used to, if I switch here, I have a full screen app. This is like Xcode in full screen. And I see people all the time minimizing apps on the Mac if they just switch to it. And that's something that on the Mac I got used to never ever do that. This is just not, I think, how this was designed to be on the Mac. I always just keep them open. If I don't need it, I just use a shortcut, which is Command H for hide, and then it's gone. And the app is still open, I can see it here. So if I want to have it back, I just click the app. Or which one closed? Did I close now? Okay, I don't remember. Anyways, that's how I do it. But it was easy to switch, to be honest. It was not a big deal. Okay, let's get back to the project. So we were here doing what you're going to test, and let's see why this is failing. I think we saw that because we had this test configuration toml contents failing. And I want to fix that. So we are in the process of adding these paths here. Let's add them everywhere. So thank you for asking questions, and if you have any more, feel free to ask. That's part of why I'm streaming, that I can answer any questions that people are interested, even slightly in iOS development, that they can ask me and I can just answer them. So let's see if this helps at all. I'm not sure if I can run it from here. Let's try. Oh, it is possible. Nice. But I don't get any errors here. Okay, it's not really working. Let's run it from the command line again. Okay, still failing, and I'd like to know a little more why it's failing. I really wish that I could somehow run the tests from Xcode. I don't know why it's not working. Let's see for the error. Okay, yet again, Swift syntax is the real issue here, which we had also in our first stream. So Swift syntax is a library from Apple, which we're using in the BartyCrouch project to like analyze Swift code, because it's really one of the features of BartyCrouch is to change Swift code from one structure to another. And for some reason, it's the library loading in Xcode somehow doesn't work. And I have tried to fix this. I did actually find a fix for this like 2 or 3 years ago. I don't remember how I did it, and I also don't know if it's still working. So we still have to run from the command line, which is not great. So I will actually add some prints here. Let's see if we can see them from the command line, and we can maybe debug the application or the issue here from here. So this is the toml contents that we've produced. So new toml contents looks something like this. Oops. And the one that we expected toml contents is this one here. And for some reason they are not the same. And that's the exact issue that we're having. So let me try to rerun this and see if we can see the outputs. Okay, there's some outputs here. So we have the, oh, this is not really, let's add some new lines around it so it's more clear. And actually we could also just go for an emoji. Something like, warning. This is the one here. And let's go for error. Oops. Maybe let's use this one here, so it's easier to find. Let's rerun the tests. Okay, I actually don't see it. Oh, this is okay, this is the one. Expected toml contents and new toml contents. And we can see it does create these things here. And the expected one, okay, this is really hard to see the diff. So I'm actually going to integrate a new library, which helps me to see the difference in like the expected text and the actual text in a project. And that's a library from Point Free, which we're using the Swift composable architecture in our Wednesday streams. And they have another one, which is called Swift Custom Dump. And this library has a very nice feature. And the nice feature here basically is that I can diff. And the diff actually happens automatically. And it's marked something like this, so I can see the difference. In XCT assert no difference. So I can use this instead of XCT assert equals. And XCT assert is basically a feature to compare the expected with the real one. Mr. Soyek asks, I missed the part where you were talking about MacBook Air. Did you advise to go for M1 version with 16 GB or RAM? I would say basically the RAM, if you're just starting out, the RAM on any MacBook that has the M1 processor in it doesn't really matter that much, so you will not see a huge difference. The only thing that is definitely true is whenever you work on like an application and things like that, you're going to start working with simulators. And if you run simulators and if you want to have like multiple of them open, you can actually run into issues with 8 GB of RAM if you really do it a lot. So by default, you work with one simulator or with an actual iPhone device that you can connect. And then 8 GB from my experience is absolutely enough. So I have actually an M1 MacBook Air at home as well, not used by me, but I've tested on that and it's absolutely enough to develop. I don't know how Apple does that, but I think they have some software optimizations for making sure that 8 GB is actually enough. But if you want to get more serious, then 16 GB is the go-to. You should definitely opt for. And if you want to get one MacBook Air now, and you want to develop with it for 5 or 10 years, or okay, 10 maybe is a little much, but for 4 to 5 years or something, then you should opt for the 16 GB from the start. But if you're just starting out the first 2 or 3 years, I think 8 GB is, you're going to be happy with that as well. So I think it depends on if you can, like if that extra amount, I think it's like $200 or something, if that's manageable. If it is, it's better, but 8 GB is also absolutely enough to get started. That would be my advice there. Okay, and the problem with the 16 GB one is if you want to get it, you typically don't get it much cheaper because you have to configure it from Apple's website. But if you get the default ones, the default configurations Apple has provided, you can get them from anywhere because they're like default pre-configured ones, and then you can get them for cheaper. That's why probably I would recommend to go for the 8 GB one if you want to just save more money. Cool. Okay, we have the outputs here. So we want to use this XCT assert no difference, which will basically use like as a replacement for XCT assert equal, which we have right now. We need to integrate the package here first. Let's go to our packages and let's add in a new dependency, just a package dependency. And this way, in this one, I'm actually using the names. So let me add the name here, which is custom dump, I think. Was it custom dump? Yeah. URL. And from version, and the latest version is 030. And then we need the dependency in BartyCrouch tests here. Custom dump. Let's actually make this alphabetically ordered, so it's after BartyCrouch kit. Cool, now we should have access to it in our tests, which is here. Let's import custom dump, and then we should be able, let's build actually. I think it needs to resolve things here. It's already saying there's an issue. Dependency has an explicit name. Yeah, I'm typically not doing the explicit name thing, so let's change that back. Let's just do the URL. And then instead, we just provide it explicitly here with product. Name is custom dump, and the package is Swift custom dump. No condition needed. Now I'm expected to work. So we're back into the tests, and we actually want to just replace this with xct. It was called no diff something, assert no difference, exactly. And then we can just use this name instead of this one below. Then we actually don't need this printing, I hope. Let's run the tests again. So it needs to fetch the dependencies because we've added a new one. Let's wait for that to happen. Great. Now it's failing, but we should have some better output here. And there we go. So we have now the assert no difference is failing. And now we can see by the minus sign here that this is actually a line in the expectations that we don't have in the actual. So this is removed. A minus means removed. If there was a plus, it means the difference is that something is added. And this makes a lot of sense to me because we have added in a previous commit last week the option ignore keys, but we didn't change the tests. We didn't adjust the test like we did just now by adding the subpaths. So we just need to add this as well. And this is also absolutely what I would have expected. And we need it in the interfaces and in the update code. Update interfaces has this new option and code as well. This looks right to me. Let's rerun the tests. And there we go, 0 failures and the tests are passing. So this is great. We have fixed tests as well. And we have fixed them with the custom dump library, which I think we can keep in the repository because it's really helpful to find issues. So let me stage these changes. They look good to me. Update tests after adding new configuration options. That's about it. And now we see again SwiftLint is running, and SwiftLint found an issue now, which is configuration test error sorted imports. So we have it configured to expect sorted imports in the tests, and we have a new import and it starts with C, which is not sorted alphabetically. So now it should pass. Let's try this. Okay, let's stage and commit, and now it passes. And if I push this now, I'm expecting now the GitHub CI to actually pass, or I hope it will pass. Oh, this is the wrong repository. So this is our pull request here. Make all static strings in project configurable. And this is the checks on the CI that are running. And now I expect all of them to pass. But we'll not wait here. We'll just continue with the next things we wanted to do. Let's go back to our list of things. So continue working on a work input, that's what we're doing. Fix build errors, that's what we just fixed. And now lastly, we want to also add another option, the third option we want to add. So users of BartyCrouch can configure it to their needs. And we want to extract also the info plist static string. So let's search for that to make clear what we're talking about. Okay, let's search just in the sources folder. Info. There we go. This is it looks like a static string. Yes, deny list string files name, file names. And what we're doing when we're searching for paths for strings file in any iOS projects in this tool is for some reason we're ignoring if we find info plist.strings files, which is actually not something that we should do. This is just something that users should be able to configure specifically if they need it. But by default, I would actually expect that these are also being found and updated, linted, translated, etc. By BartyCrouch. And we have a warning, info plist static string needs to be turned into a configuration option. Yeah, that's exactly the warning we have added here. And let's extract this actually to work exactly like the others that we have exported to. So we have this the constants file. This is all the different things we have extracted, and let's extract this last one as well. So deny list string files name. This is not what we want. Instead, this is just default. So this is, in the end, this is just some file names that we want to ignore. And we do have paths to ignore here. And if we use a specified info plist dot strings as like listed them here in the path, default subpaths to ignore dot get cartridge. I believe it should work here already, so we don't actually need this anymore. We can just remove it. Yeah, I think that's as simple as that, because you can already just specify here info plist dot strings and it should already work. You might have to test it later, but I believe that this is the better approach. So let's try to build the project. It should fail because we have removed some things. Okay, now the entire packages are failing. I don't know why. Let's reset package caches. Sometimes Xcode is doing some weird things. And actually, I like to also add like the reason for adding dependencies. So let's actually do that here as well. So we added Swift custom dump. And the I like to copy the about description, so anyone who's checking this project out can directly see why we have added this. And this is only for tests also. So let's also change this structure to look a little nicer or more readable. And there we go. So one thing we might actually do later is also to change the project's 4 spaces default to 2 spaces. So what we have done so far, check if new provided. Yeah, we have fixed all build errors in project as well as Swiftland warnings. And we have updated the TOML content tests so the CI passes. I mean, we don't know if the CI passes yet. Let's have a look. Swiftland is passing and these two are still running. It's not done yet, but that's what we've done there. Now, is it building now? Let's try again. Okay, it's failing as expected because we have removed the deny list string files name, and it says ignore suffixes. So we do have an option here to ignore suffixes. So that's maybe different from what we had, but we have also subpaths to ignore. Can we use this for the same thing? Let's have a look at the implementation. So we're passing ignore suffixes and subpaths to ignore here. Okay, this is just the protocol. So we need to find all file paths in files searchable. Find out, oh, this is implemented here. So we have these two here, indirect subpaths ignore and ignore suffixes. Let's see how this is used. It's used in the end. We're just filtering the ones that contain that suffix. How do we use this? And this we're doing by skipping the file with subpaths to ignore. We have a feature here, should skip file. Let's have a look at that. Subpaths to ignore. To do write test to make sure this works even when user provides ignore path hello/world. Okay, this doesn't work for multiple component paths, so this is a to-do we need to fix. What we do, okay, we do some subtraction here. And imagine that our file path is something like some path 2, and then we have info plist.strings. And now the user passes here info plist, so the subpaths to ignore. Paths to ignore does contain info plist.strings. So when we run this code now, we will go URL path components. This will split this into path components, so it will be split by the slash, and we will have a path component named info_plist_strings. Then we're subtracting the base path components. Where are these from? Okay, we have base path components, so we're subtracting basically the folder that we're running this from. So we should still have, like, maybe we're removing this part. And then we're checking if this contains if this list, so we have a list now, and the list basically looks like this, 2 and info_plist_strings. This is the list, and we're checking if this contains a component where the subpaths to ignore, where this list contains one of these. And it will actually happen because this list contains this, and it should match, and then it should ignore. So this should work. I believe we don't need the ignore suffixes thing. So I will just remove that. So this filter here, we don't need that anymore. Instead, we can just pass down all file paths, and we don't need this parameter anymore. Same here. And let's try to build. So this is not needed anymore. This also. Let's build. This is also not needed. And build is passing now. Nice. So basically, the first thing we wanted to do is make this ignore this configurable. We have already effectively done that by the subpaths to ignore. And I believe that this is basically it. That's basically all we needed to do there. Let's run the tests. And it says tests failed. But yeah, let's not trust the test failed here in Xcode. Let's run the test from the command line. Okay, let's open the command line from here. And Swift test. Let's see what happens. I'm expecting them to actually pass. And they pass, so nothing broken here. Let's also see if we had any options provided for the ignore paths, but I think that was not the case. So ignore suffixes is not mentioned anywhere. Cool. We have just basically removed the ignore suffixes, and this is related to a bug report that we actually had on BartyCrouch. Let's go to BartyCrouch. Oops. So there is a bug report related to info_plist not being found. Info_plist. Let's search. Localized or wiped. Not sure if this is related. Shouldn't be ignored. Incorrect. Localized. Shouldn't be ignored. Maybe this was related to that. Hey, I have just localized my info_plist, which requires creating a strings file. Clicking the localization. Okay. Okay, this was a different case. This was because this doesn't have the right structure. And I think we already handled that last time. Yeah, we answered it last week. So, okay, let's not link it at all. Let's just commit this. So what we've done here effectively is removed a static non-configurable ignorance of info_plist_strings files. That's it. And I did not check if the tests actually passed this time, and they will start again because I have pushed again, but this is good news. Everything is looking good. And I believe after this commit, we can basically do the preparation for merging this new feature. So we have these checks, they will run again. And before I merge a new feature, I always want the feature to be documented. So let's go ahead and do that. And the documentation, I do it in the changelog file, which I can't see here. There we go, changelog. And we have this section here, and I see it's empty. It should actually not be empty, because if I remember correctly, we have a new feature added here, which we had merged. There we go, we merged something. And the last release was here. So we merged something after the last release. Let's also document that. Let's document our new feature here at first, or new features. So first is we added a new option. Let's look up the name for the option, which was ignore keys. So added a new option, ignore keys, to provide custom alternatives to the default PC ignore kind of keys if needed. And it should default new option defaults to, and then we can provide the list if not no custom, if not specified otherwise. And the defaults that we have set there, we can see them in the constants, are these. So it's documented, and in this project I used to also basically add a mention of basically what pull request we're trying to, which pull request this is basically being merged with, and it's this one. Let's go to the main pull request site. Let's copy that. So this is the pull request, the related one. If someone wants to look up the changes, the number, and then the developer basically. There we go. Then we added another feature. So we added a new option. In this case, the new option's name is subpaths to ignore, and this is actually a really useful option. Added a new option, subpaths to ignore, to provide paths to be ignored inside of paths inside of the provided paths. Yeah, so we already have the paths option. Added a new option, subpaths to ignore, to provide paths to be ignored inside of the provided paths. Subpaths. Provide subpaths to be ignored. Alternative. New option, defaults to. Let's also document that. Let's go to constants. So these are the ones, the paths that we are ignoring by default. Defaults to git folder, cartridge, pods, build, docs, not specified. So added a new option to provide subpaths to be ignored inside of the provided paths with a case insensitive comparison. That's very important to mention. Cool. New option defaults to this if not specified otherwise. And same PR that is related to this, and same other. Cool. And I think we had some issue also reported that these changes were related to. So do I have them mentioned anywhere? This doesn't mention. Where can I see the commits description? I can only see the change files. Okay, somehow I can't see the description. Never mind. I think it should be enough to document the changes like that. And let's see, okay, this is still building. Have we changed anything? Is this the added section? Is this the right section? Basically, the options are new. Is the behavior changed? We basically removed something, which fixes an issue though. So we have removed ignoring all info plist.strings files by default. What's important is if you want this to actually be the case, just add yeah, just add info plist.strings to the array, and the new what's the option's name? Subpaths to ignore option AG. Let's actually provide a list of defaults plus the new one, so people know how to configure this easily and they can just copy and paste. And the option's name is subpaths to ignore equals, and then we just provide the array. Okay, like this. And we add info plist.strings. Cool, that should actually work. And same PR, same developer. Nice, we have fixed an issue. We have added some features. And for fix, it's actually always great to have a related issue. And there was one. I'm pretty sure that some people reported that the info plist didn't work anymore. Explicit folders, compiler should be ignored later. Incorrect translation placement. Okay, maybe there is not an issue, but I know that one friend of mine actually reported this as an issue, and this should be fixed at least. Cool. This is the new features documented, and the new options here. That we should also update the README to also have them in there. So we have ignore keys and subpaths to ignore, and we actually in our tests that's what we just saw. In our tests, we do have the full sample of what a new configuration file will look like. So if we go to, where are our tests? There's our tests. If we go to the tests and we go to configuration tests, and we just copy this text here. Okay, there are some changes here, but more or less that's what we want to know. And in the README, we have all these things configured. Configure options documented, I mean. And we also have a sample configuration file here. That's the sample. Well, let's actually copy this in here. Okay, we have to unindent them. And now let's compare them one by one. So interfaces, code transformation, normalized. Interface, actually this has code transform. This has code as well, and this doesn't have code. That's interesting. And we are adding this new option with. This is actually not the one I was looking for. I believe we have another one here. Yeah, this is the one I was looking for. Let's just copy the subpaths to ignore here. I think we need them everywhere. So subpaths to ignore, the new one. Let's just adjust the one that we already had. And I want it to be like this. This is like that, like that, like that, like that. And then we also have the ignore keys, which I can't see here too. Am I seeing the wrong thing again? Yeah, this is the ignore keys. We need to add that to the interfaces and to the code in the README. Interfaces and the code. There we go. Now let's document also the new options here, and where we provide a different option defaults, and make sure that we actually, let's copy the name. I don't want to mistype anything. So subpaths to ignore. Subpaths to ignore. So this is the subpaths to be ignored inside the directories found via the paths option. this is basically what this option does. And we have the same here. Same here. Same here. Here. And in the lint one, normalize, translate. Why don't we have the options documented for lint? We should have them here as well. Lint was designed to analyze the current checks include, yeah. Okay, never mind. They are documented everywhere else. And lastly, we also want to document the ignore keys. So we have that option on interfaces. And what it does is, that's what we just described in the changelog. Let's just copy the text. So removed, added a new ignore keys option to provide custom alternative defaults to the BC ignore. That's exactly what it does. I think that's basically terms or keys indicating that specific translation entries should be ignored when generating strings files. Keys in comment, e.g. in the comment. Okay, ignore keys, and we have that for code as well. Let's fix that. Brace. Translation entries should be ignored when generating. Useful. Yeah, I think. Yeah, use this. Useful. To so if you're an interface builder, basically what you want to do is sometimes you want to customize the specific values. So useful to ignore strings that are gonna be given values, are gonna be values or assigned values that are gonna be translated in code. So yeah, something like that. I think most users know this already, and they don't need to change anything. Great. I think this is about it. So we have documented in the README and in the changelog the changes, and in the README as well. Nice. Document changes of PR, what's our PR number? 245 or something, 242. Of PR for 242 in changelog and README. Let's push that, and then I think we can merge this already after testing if it actually works. Okay, maybe we want to test things, and let's test them out now. Okay, so we have this tool here, so let's build it. Swift build -c release. So we want to use the release configuration built here, so we can actually compare to when we actually release it later. We still have this to do. Should we fix it now? I think it makes sense to fix it now. Okay, let's fix it first. We do want to make sure that the subhouse to ignore works as expected. So let's go to the warning. So we're not having tests for this yet. And let's write tests now. Code file search. Do we have tests for this? This is in BartyCrouch kit file handling. Tests, BartyCrouch kit file handling. Code file search. Okay, we don't have tests for this yet. Let's create one. Code file search tests. Import xctest. Add testable import the called file handling. No, it's BartyCrouch kit, sorry. BartyCrouch kit. And then final class code file search tests xctest case. Blank test, and then what we want to test is the should skip file method. Test should skip file. Cool. How are we going to test it? So the should skip file method takes a URL and subpaths to ignore, and then decides if this specific URL should be ignored. And let's just make some examples. So we have xct assert true. So what do we expect to be ignored? Is when we have code file search dot. Is it a function? Yeah, it's a function on the object. So we have to create one. Let's actually create one here. That code file search, so we can reuse it. And then we just call the function, which we can't access for some reason, should skip file. Should skip file, add, and then subpaths to ignore. And then we have to give it some URL. So let's create some URL. Let's just do a path with, let's say, some path to a strings file / info pls.strings. Let's just do the test with this specifically. And the URLs are actually the thing that we want to change all the time. Oh, we can extract it later though. Yeah, let's do it right. So should skip file is this. The result of this for the subpaths to ignore. So which subpaths do we want to ignore? We want to definitely test if this works. And we expect it to be true. If we provide this URL and these subpaths to ignore, we expect to get true as a response. So this should actually result in true. Let's just add it here inside this. Maybe with some different indentation, like this. Okay, this I actually expect to pass. Let's see if we can run it here. Okay, we first have to provide a base directory path. Okay, creating a code file search is some work. Let's just go for bundle.main, or can I provide like the file manager default.temporary directory. Let's just use this .path. Let's see if that works. Okay, builds, it runs, but we can't see if it passes here. We have to run the test here. And I think I can also specify a specific test here. Let's run the help first. Filter, run test cases matching regular expressions, like target test case. Skip version. Okay, we can definitely filter. Let's list the tests first. Swift test -L gives us a list of all tests, and now we should be able to do something like Swift test and then use a specific name, and which is code file search. Where do we have it? I don't see code file search here. Oh, here it is. Can I just run it like this? Nope. Oh yeah, I had to provide the filter. -- filter. Cool. So again, learning here actually. Let me write that down. In the Notion page. So learning. When running tests using SwiftPM, we can filter by entries from -list. I think was the right name. Was it? List tests. List tests. Cool, that's learning there. And our test is failing. And it's basically stating that it is expected it to be true, but it failed. So it was not true. This is something that we need to definitely fix. And we can have a look at the code there. Unfortunately, we can't really debug into it with a breakpoint, but we could actually just go in there and see what the logic is doing. I mean, it's not much logic here. So what is the URL actually? Let's print the URL. I'm not sure what kind of URL I'm creating here. Oh, actually, the URL should always be inside of this, right? So I should actually create the URL by stating something in a temporary directory, appending path component, path components, appending. Let's just do path components, see if I can provide all this thing here. Let's actually just add it. Oh, let's give it a name. So this is the URL. That's just the first test. Let's rerun the test. And it's not even building because it states that temporary directory is a get only property. I didn't want to mutate it. Appending, sorry. That's the issue. Let's see if the test passes. Still not passing, and I do want to know what my URL looks like. So let's print the URL. URL.path. Let's see what it looks like. So the URL looks something like this. This is like, I think this is the temporary folder. And then I say like some path to a strings file / info.plist.strings. I expect this. When I run the code logic here, let's just copy this. So when I create a URL, when I create a set of path components, I should have info.plist.strings in there. If I subtract the path components from these, I should still have these ones. And I say if it contains one of those that I have here. Okay, let's do this first. Because we can't really breakpoint into the code. I have to just replicate the logic here. I really wish that Xcode could run the tests from Xcode. This is the path components. Set. See what that looks like. Path components set. Let's just do it like this. Let's run this code. Oops. Something. Okay, base path components we have to get from code file search base. Oh, actually, this is not as easy. Let's have a look at the code again. So base path components is here. It's private. Oh, that's why I can't access. But it is basically doing this. So let's do that as well. Let base path components equal, and then I'm saying this one here, path components. Let's rerun the test. Okay, it's saying subtracting is not available. Subtracting on a set. Let's read again. Inlineable public subtracting. So I don't quite get what the issue is. But base path components, maybe I mistyped. Yes. Let's rerun. Okay, so now we're seeing that the path component set is some strings to file info.plist a path. So this, and because it's a set, the order is changed, but we do have info.plist.strings. And what I expect now, if I say path component set contains basically any of the subpaths to ignore, which in our case is this one here. Let's subpaths to ignore. And I expect the subpaths to ignore to contain, or I think I need to, to contain one, where the entry in the subpaths to ignore lowercase is available, is equal, we need to say contains, is equal to, I believe we need to give this a name, so this is a path component, is equal to path component dot lowercase, and this is should skip. I expect should skip to be true actually here. Oh, it's failing because I need some where here, contains where. Let's do it properly. Oh, I think I got the issue. It's the where missing here. Okay, so we are getting true. So expect to this to result true. And here I'm saying assert true, but it's not true. So actually it's working. There might just be, oh, that's it, that's weird. It is true here, should skip. This contains. Let's see the code again in the should skip file. So this does subpaths to ignore contains component lowercase. Oh, the subpaths to ignore, I have to lowercase that as well, which I'm doing in this code, but not in that. So basically, contains where, that's what I need to do here as well. Contains where the components lowercase equals the $0 lowercase. That was the issue, I believe. So let's run this test again. Now it's passing. Great. So far so good. I can now delete all this weird code that we don't need anymore. Instead I could just pass this directly here as the URL and the subpaths to ignore directly here. I don't like this part repeated, so let's try to make this simpler. So I am asserting true, appending this path component. What if I just go with base directory slash? I mean, we're not doing anything with the directory, so let's just make a simple. And then I could just skip all this and just say slash and make a URL with it. File URL with path. This should actually work. Without search, we don't need to base components. Yeah, much simpler code. Let's see if this is passing too. And it is passing. So now this is how we can check if things are working as expected. And now we're going to create many of these where we will have different kind of expectations, paths, etc. So imagine we have the same here, and I wanna ignore, let's actually make it interesting or realistic. So we can have a project, or let's go with users, me, developer, and then project A. Let's give a white space in there. And then we say project A, then we have sources. Well, let's go for pods actually. Pods, sources. I don't know how pods names this, but let's give lib A. And then in lib A we have sources now, supporting files, /info PLC, something like that. Just more realistic. And now we can give different values there. So let's say we have a list where we have pods in here. which I forgot. Oh no, here it is. And info plist strings. And let's make pods small, lowercase, and the other one uppercase. So this should actually also ignore. It should also ignore if I just provide pods and just provide info plist. So this is like the third one. Or let's do it like this. We just give pods here and always the same URL. Let's extract this actually. Sample file URL. I think this can even be fit into one line now. Maybe even like this. Yeah, even like this. Let's delete all this. Let's make it simplify. Oops. And now I want to know, we also want to have some false cases. Why is it not code highlighting properly? That's another question. But we do have this file path. And skip file, add, closing, closing. This looks nice to me. Skip file, add. Okay, we have the pods and info plist here. Let's just go for pods. Should work there. Let's just go for info plist. It should also work if we have both of them provided. And it should also work if I provide, and that's the thing that we were missing before. If I provide something like not users, but maybe sources / supporting files. So I'm providing here something which is a subpath with multiple parts there. And this actually shouldn't work right now because the implementation isn't proper yet. And likewise, if the provided path here to be ignored is empty, should not ignore. If it is, let's say, just info plist, because this is not a subpath, it's just a file name, it should not work. Also, if I just say .strings, it should not work. And maybe we go for, what else can we do to test for? Let's also go for sources / resources, which we don't have listed there, but we do have sources listed, so this should also not be mixed. And this is what I would expect to happen. Let's see how much of that currently already works. So we have one failure. Let's go for 2 here. Do we get multiple failures if multiple of them fail? Yeah, okay, so just one of them is failing. Everything else is actually passing as expected. And the failing one I'm expecting is the one with the subpath. Do we have it here? Should skip file. Okay, not really mentioned, but I'm pretty sure that it's this one that is failing. Let's test it out. Yeah, it's that one. Everything else is passing. If we could run it in Xcode again, I could see that more clearly. Let's drink something. Actually, I see that we're more or less in the half of the stream, and I'm sitting for too long, so I think I'm gonna make, before we get into the implementation of fixing this one here, I'm gonna take a little break and to stretch and to get some fresh air. And if somebody's watching and wants to do that as well, feel free to do that. So be right back in a few minutes. Yeah, just stay tuned. Okay, we're back from our stretching and getting some fresh air, which has been great. So always great to get back some energy. Cool, so we were on this feature where we had this assertion that was failing, and we basically want to implement it and get it working now. So we have some tests here, and let's get into the implementation and just fix it. And the implementation was marked with a warning, so I think I should find it quickly. Yeah, there we go. So this is the warning, and this is exactly what I was expecting, that something like that would not work, and it is not working. And in order to fix that, let's write some code here. So what we want to do is we want to skip always when there is, okay, basically the issue is that if somebody provides a subpath that in itself consists of multiple parts, then it's not working. So what we want to do is see, and I think the set already is a problem here because we have to know the order then as well. We want to see if that, let's go by example. So we have an example here, something like this. Let's put it here as a comment, and we want it to be filtered if I provide this. Skip if. But at the same time, we don't want it to be filtered if I provide this. No skip if. Okay, so we have the samples here. What we could do now, let's actually comment this out for now. And we do want to return a boolean. So what we could do here, very simply, we could just say URL. Okay, let's start first with subtracting this part. I think that is something that makes sense to be kept. So we have the URL path components. I'm actually going to use a different way of subtracting, so I'm just going to say we have the URL. Let's go the path to the path of the URL. Let's just say replacing occurrences of, maybe not occurrences, but we want to remove the prefix of the base directory path. So we could, how can we remove the base directory path? So this is the base directory path, for example. We want to remove it. We just ask for the range of the substring, maybe. Okay, let's try that. So we have url.path. So range of a string in there. And it's going to give me the first range I'm expecting. Finds and returns the range of the first occurrence. Perfect. So base directory path, that's the range we want to know. If we find that range, we will have the range now. First, this is the potential base dir substring range. If the potential base substring range is lower bound is 0, so it starts at the index, so it's basically the start of the whole URL. Is that gonna work even? Why do we need this base directory path in the first place here? Does it get used anywhere? Yeah, it gets used here, unless it has a fixed string. Base directory path. Okay, potential base dir path. Yeah, if we even find one, if let, let's do it like this. And then if this lower bound is equal to 0, then we want to basically remove that from the string. So our subpath, URL subpath, our subpath is the URL path, and then if we want to remove that. We say subpath remove subpath delete remove the subrange. Removes the characters in the given range. Or we could just go for remove first and then let's remove subrange. Remove subrange. So we want to remove that. I'm thinking that we can have the problem is we can have the base directory prof someone down in here and then, but that's not really going to happen, right? What if this is just users and then I have users here inside as well? Maybe I need to provide that in the test as well as a possible case that we need to cover, which is base directory, but we're not, okay, let's not make it too complicated. Let's just go for this approach and just say remove subrange, potential base directory subrange. And now we can split the subpath into path components. Let's call it subpath components by saying subpath components separated by, I think this should be, is a safe slash. We're not making BartyCrouch work on Windows. We're making it work on Linux and stuff. And I think slash is not allowed. So I think that should be working. We don't need a URL. We could also put this into a URL. Where is this going to work? File URL with path. And then yeah, I'm not really sure if this works every time. I think this is the safer approach for now. Maybe we can test it out. Let's go into a Swift playground and just try out if subpaths accept, if URL accepts subpaths. So I want to create a URL with a file URL with a path and then just the subpath like a path to x.strings. Let's see if that is valid. And again, it's building here. And this actually works. And then here I could actually say URL equals URL path components. And this should also work. Yeah, it does. So, oh, it creates a very weird path. So it adds actually things to it, which I don't want. What if I just say slash here, just to be sure? In this case, okay, I need to have a slash at the beginning. And then slash was part of the path components, right? Let me reopen the project. So slash was also one of the path components. Yeah. A path to and slash itself is also one of the components. I'm really not all that decided. I think this and then deleting any empty ones. So filter all those that are blank. Or that are not blank. This is our subpath components. Now, when we have the subpath components, which is these components here, we also want to split this. Gorham Baba, welcome to the stream. Hallo Jihad, ich höre dir, solange ich Pause habe, hin bei der Arbeit. Gruß, Gorham Baba. Ja, willkommen. Welcome. So you're listening while working. thank you very much. Welcome to the stream. How is your work going? Wie ist deine Arbeit? Alles gut? Okay, subpath components. So the thing is, we want to also match this, and we could simply do this by just going over the whole subpath and see if that contains it actually. But then if this was just like going like this, just supporting, it wouldn't be a real path. Do we want to still ignore it? Maybe we do want to ignore it. But then the naming is not great. Let's not ignore it. So we have this, and we don't want this to matter. Maybe let's keep it simple. Let's just ignore that as well. Yeah, I will just keep it simple. So we have the subpath now, URL path. When we have removed it here. Now we could just say return subpath contains, and then any of, like we have an entire area of possible subpaths there, but only if the path component. What if I like have a word that has pots in it? Yeah, that's why I don't want to have that. Okay, subpath components. We're going to use this somehow. We have the subpath components. We could go for the subpath components contains, and then any of. So subpath component. Let's just go comp. Let's just go component, and then the component lowercase equals, or actually subpaths to ignore, contains any, where the lowercase version equals the component lowercase version. So this is the simple one, and this would basically replace the logic down there. So let's actually run this. I'm expecting this to fail at the same place. And let's go for the tests. So where are my tests? There's my tests. So let's run the tests. And it's not even building due to some binary integer issue. Let's build. What's wrong? Oh yeah, lower bound is a binary integer. Oh, this is a binary integer. Range. Let's go for. Well, we have Handy Swift here. We do. Then we should be able to convert this to an NS range. Okay, it doesn't work. Anyways, this is the range. Lower bound is type string.index equals. Let's go for subpath here. And then we can go for subpath dot start index. Now it should build. And now the test should fail at the same position, but only one. So only one failed we should have, as expected. Good, so the code is working as expected so far. Now the last thing we want to fix is somehow make this work with multiple matches as well. So currently we're just checking if it contains any subpath components. How can we check for subpaths, for combinations? I don't want to build like tuples of combinations of 2, 3, etc. I want it to work nicely in some way. Okay, what we can definitely do is we can also split the subpaths to ignore. So we are in the paths here, and then we have the subpaths to ignore. I can check directly like this. So in this case, I'm returning basically if this is happening. So direct contain or single path contains. This is basically what we're doing right now. And then we could also go for unsplit. Oh, this is unsplit path contains. Unsplit subpath contains. So we're just checking the subpaths that we have without splitting them. And then we can go now forward and just say subpaths to ignore. Okay, I think I found a solution. That will actually be able to replace everything here. So we're just going to say for subpath to ignore in subpaths to ignore. And we're going to just split the subpath to ignore as well. So we're just going to say let subpath components equals subpath to ignore components separated by a slash. And now we have the subpath components, and then what we can do is if the subpath components, oh wait, that's a bad name, subpath to ignore components, that's what we want. Subpath to ignore components. And now if the subpath components, which is an array, contains, okay, maybe it's, okay, I want to check if the array contains the other array. How can I do that? Okay, so imagine I have array of A, B, C, and I want to check if it contains array B, C. Let's Google that quickly. Swift check if array contains other array. How to determine if one array contains all elements of another array in Swift. Yeah, I don't want to use set because the order is important. All satisfy. Larger array contains subarray. Seems to be what you want. Assuming you can't conform the elements to hashable. Contains a subarray. All satisfy. No, that's also not what I want. Contains with order. I wanted to also have the order. You can use filter method. I could join them and see if it contains. No, not really the solution. Okay, not really what I'm looking for. Check if no. Okay, I will have to implement this myself. Or maybe, oh no, okay. I have this. And I want to walk through this and see if we have the exact same thing. So I want to find the first element in the first list, the index of the first element in the first list, and then basically check if the next elements are the same. That's basically what I want. So I'm gonna have to implement some algorithm here. I'm just gonna do a private func array. Let's do an extension. Extension to array where elements is of type is equatable. I think it should be reusable, and we could actually extract this. Warning, extract this into a reusable place, e.g. handy Swift. Let's see if it's worth adding it there. But basically what I want to do is I want to have a function on the array that basically checks if the array contains array subarray. Basically that's what we're doing here. Contains subarray. And then we have a subarray, which is another array of the same element type. And I just return bool. Let's set up spaces here. I'll fix that later. So contains subarray. And then basically what I do, let's reformat. And then basically what I do is from a sub-array, I check the index in this array of the first element. So first index where I want to have all indexes. So indexes, indices, I can't get them. Okay, we'll work with first index where. Okay, we want to know the first index. First index. Let's actually do an if let here. I want to know the first index where the element is equal to the sub-array's first element. Yeah, that's right. And if I find the first index, I want to know if all the subsequent elements are equal to the subsequent elements of the sub-array, but only so many as I have in the sub-array. So basically, I want to check the sub-range. So the sub-range in this array is starting with the first index. Can I create a range? Index range? No. String range. Okay, let's go with we have an array, not a string. Yeah, sure. This is just all array.index is of type int. Yeah, that's easy. Then we have the subrange that we want to build, and the subrange I want it to be starting from the first index. So we just say first index and next, and then up to, and then we have subarray.count plus first index plus that. First index plus subarray.count -1. So let's make an example to be sure that this makes sense. So we have the example from above, ABC, and then we have BC that we're searching for. And this means that the first index that we match, let's do this in a new line. Let's actually keep that as a comment. Sample. This equals ABC, subarray equals BC, first index equals 1 then subrange equals we start with first index, which is 1, and first index is 1 plus subarray.count is 2 minus 1, which in the end is 3 minus 1, so it's 2, which makes a lot of sense, but it should not be lower. It should actually be, okay, if we do lower, we don't need the -1, then it's 3. 1 up to, but not including 3. That makes sense. So we have a subrange here that makes sense. And we want to get this subrange in the current array. And that we can do is so we can just go for range. I think it's even simpler than that. Let's just let's just go self subrange elements equals self, and then we just give the subrange. This should work. I'm not 100% sure. Equals apply. Yeah, okay, this is an optional. This one is not an optional. Do we expect this to be non-empty? We can just have an early return here. So guard subarray is empty, so it has to be non-empty. Else we just return if we get it empty sub-array, does our array include that empty sub-array? Kind of yes. What if someone provides an empty string? Let's return false. Logically, I think yeah, true makes more sense. But in our use case, I think false. I mean, this is not undefined. Basically, I could also throw an error. Let's keep it working. Particle cell can only be used as a generic constraint. It has self or associated requirements. Where element. Let's do it like this. And then the guard has to return. Sorry, yeah, return false, of course. And this is into, yeah, this is the warning that we put ourselves, and this works. So subrange elements, and basically we want to return and check if the subrange elements are the same. Return subrange elements equals subarray. Is it? I think that's basically what we want to do. Let's test it out. We could also write tests for this specifically. Yeah, let's also add command plus write tests. But we're not going to do it now. Subpath components, subpath to ignore components. Separate. So we have now two arrays. The first array is subpath. So if the subpath components contains subarray, that's what we just implemented. And actually we're calling this subarray already, so no need for the name here. It contains subarray, subpath. Well, let's actually use the more common approach for the contains function. So it should be just contains and then subarray. And our subarray is subpath to ignore components. If it contains the subarray, then you want to skip the file and we just say that it contains one. Actually, we don't need to contain subpath components. Subpath components. I'm just walking through the subpath components. So I just need it for subpath components in subpath components contains. Actually, I don't even need this. I just need this, right? Let me go through that. So I'm going through the subpaths to ignore. Why is this not working properly? Oh, this entire function has a wrong indentation. There we go. So subpath to ignore, in subpaths to ignore, I'm checking if the subpath components contains a subarray. If that's the case, I'm just returning that we want to skip, so I'm just returning true. And if we walk through the whole subpaths to ignore and nothing happens, we're returning false. This should actually be all the implementation that we need. Let's check if the tests are working. I'm really curious now. Okay, it's not running yet. Build, something is wrong. Subrange elements equals subarray doesn't work because array slice. Ah, that was the kind. Contains array slice. Should we pass array slice here too? Subarray. Let's go with subarray. Let's just make the array slice an array. Or we just turn that into an array slice. Can we turn an array into array slice? Just like that. Init. Array literal. From the original, yeah, should actually work. So let's just do it like this. I think this is faster. Build. Missing return in a function expected to return boolean. So we return that it contains if the first index works. If the first index doesn't work, do we want to check for other indexes? Technically, we should. So we have to find every index. but we actually want to know index off. Rename to first index off. Is it maybe then call all indexes or something like that? All. Okay. Swift find all indexes matching. Indexes predicate for in enumerated. If predicate. Okay, so they're implementing it themselves. Maybe we need to do that as well. Cool. So we need to walk through all through all the indexes. So for index in enumerated, and we also have the object element. No, I think index is first when you go in enumerated. Yeah. Index element in enumerated, and if element equals subarray dot first, and we can know that it has a first element because we can actually go like this, go let first subarray element, and actually we could go for an array slice here. Contains array slice. Is there already a method doing exactly that? Contains array slice. Swift array contains array slice. That's exactly what we want. How can I perform array slice? Contains difference, collection difference. In terms of difference, you need to produce the collection's ordered elements from the given collection. Distance. We even have a distance method. Elements equal all satisfy. Returns a boolean validating whether any of modifiers. Could use some kind of diffing algorithm. Index offset by last index lexicographically prefix suffix. Okay, I'm not sure. Maybe there is a better solution, but let's go with the one that works. Guard that first element in first subarray element. Subarray the first element, the first. Else return false. Then we have the first element here, which is first subarray element. If element equals first subarray element, and then we want to check this. That first index where if element equals, and let's just combine it here. Else return false. What about it now? It's building, it's saying a mutable value index was never used. Didn't I use the index here? This is the index. Element equals. Oh, I don't need that because this is basically already the case here. And this is the index. Index. Let's run a test now. They could be passing now. If everything went fine. Still one failure. Let's make sure that let's see how we are doing the comparison here. So here we have the subrange elements. equals to subrange elements, and then we have the array slices sub-array. Array equals to, and they should be the same in some situation. Let's see what comparisons are being made. So info plus strings and info plus strings, that should match, that should match. Sources supported files, sources supporting files, I mean. And these two should actually match. And this should not match, okay. It's doing exactly as expected. Let's go into the test and see which one is failing. And this is also a typo here. So let's actually see if this specific one is passing as expected. Yes, this is passing. So which one is failing now? Is it one of these? No. Is it this one? Nope. This one? Nope. Then it has to be this one. Okay, this is failing. Maybe I forgot the... Yeah, the comparison has to be case insensitive. So contains... Let's do this, a string. Let's make it specifically a string. Extension array, where element equals string. Element is type string. Contains case insensitive. And then we have to... When we compare them, we just do a map and we just make them all lowercase. Same here, map lowercase. I forgot the slash. See if that builds. Element has no member, lowercase element is equals to string. And cannot confirm to equatable. How is that possible? Oh, this is a... I have to actually call that like this. Oh god. Lowercase. I believe no need for array slice here anymore because we're mapping. It should both be an array now. And it's failing because I renamed the function. And now I want to go back here. I'm pretty sure that we can shorten this to map and then just something like this. By using the key path. But the key path has to have a slash. Backslash, I think. Oops. Okay, never mind. I can make that more beautiful later. Let's see first if this is making the test pass. Still one failure. Oh, I have to do this here as well. Lowercase. Lowercase. Now it should pass. Let's see. There we go, test passing. And let's see if I have any things commented out. Code file search, no, they're all in here. And this one can stay. This one was just for debugging. And extract this. This is not extractable anymore, it's very specific. And I think the tests are fine enough. Cool. This is pretty much what we need. This looks good. This is exactly the logic that we needed. Should skip file is working as expected. And we can commit. Go file search. Go file search tests. So add support for subpaths consisting of multiple path components plus tests. And we have some Swiftland warnings. When a synchronized search 21, remove where for a negative filter. Remove where instead of filter where not. Makes sense. Code file search 21. Code file search 21. We're saying filter and then we're using not. Instead we should just go for remove where. Actually we don't need to where here. Cannot use mutating. Remove. This was filter. Removing. Remove where? Remove where for negative filtering, but we are not trying to mutate this. I think we have to turn that rule off. That is a false positive. That rule is named remove where for negative, etc, etc. Let's close this first. Let's go and open this in Atom. We want to change our Swift-lint configuration here. And our Swift-lint configuration has this. This is even a custom one. This is definitely something we can remove. What was the other one? Let's try to commit again. The other one was syntactic sugar violations. Shorthand syntactic sugar should be used. Instead of array, we should use, okay, fair enough. We have array element somewhere. And we should use the shorthand one. Oops. There you go. Now it should work. Cool. Let's push this, and I think we are ready to merge this now. We just need the CI to pass. This is great. So we have the CI, we have all the things that we need. Let's see the checklist of contributing. So I have a checklist of things to do for making a new release, and there is nothing specific here. I believe we can now test the entire thing. Okay, let's test the entire thing. Swift build -c release. This is going to build a release version, and then we're just going to run this in a sample project. I think we still have one here. So this is a sample project. We can just run this in and see if everything is still working as expected. Go here and just create a BartyCrouch, translate some new key translations. Let's just do English EN, German DE. Let's add some comment. Let's copy this and do it here too with a different one. EN2, DE2, comment 2. Okay, I expect that to work, and we know that we have in our BartyCrouch project, we have the scheme with an argument, or with the option. Wasn't it? That was an argument. Oh, we have to go to the other scheme, of course, to the executable, which is this one here. So we have this provided here, and that's what we want to call update path, and then this thing. So for all users who don't change anything in their BartyCrouch settings, I expect things to still work, and most importantly, I expect the pods folder, for example, to still be ignored. So actually, let's create a pods folder inside of here. And then let's just, oops, wrong project. Let's create a pods folder. Ah, this is a pods folder, which is perfect. Pods folder, a subfolder, a demo. Let's actually add this here outside the pods. Yeah, too. en3 de3 comment free. And then we have the BartyCrouch tumble file, and this one doesn't have anything mentioned here. So actually the pods folder should be ignored by default because we're not setting anything specific. Yeah, this is I think the normal one. Let's actually check if there are any changes there. Oh, we haven't checked it out. Anyways, this looks like it's unchanged. So I'm expecting it to just continue working as before. And to test that, let's open this folder, go into build, into app arm64, into release, and then here we have the new executable that we've built. And I'm going to copy in the command that we need to run there, which is here, this one. And let's run. Okay, so it has been run. And it worked here, it worked here, it worked here as well. I think this is not expected though, because we wanted the pods to be ignored by default, right? Or did we just make a configuration change here? So our tumble file here. Oops, something wrong with the lighting here. Let me check that for a second. So what's exactly going on? Let's fix that. Okay, should be better now again. So I was having a look at this here and I want to know why it's not ignoring the pods folder. I think because it's in the code paths mentioned explicitly here. I think that was a feature added. If something is listed explicitly inside the paths to use, the default ignore paths should not apply. Did we break something there with this feature? I don't think so. So I'm just looking for subpaths inside these things. So if I remove this, it should still work as expected before. So let me add BartyCrouch translate here. New. And this should actually not be translated anymore. Same here. But this one should be translated. This works, and this gets ignored just like this. This works. So if you don't add any specific things to ignore, it actually works. And then we want to check if the update code, I think, update interface is normalized, translate, transform. Transform is the one that we're doing here. What if I add this new option? I think it's not here, documented here yet. What if I provide this new option that we have documented in the README? So sub paths to ignore, there we go. Let's copy that actually. So this is the one thing, and we are going to remove the pods here. I expect it to no longer ignore the pods here. Let's see what happens. Yeah, we have to first provide something again. Let's copy that. Let's make this 4. Now all of them should be translated or transformed. So this worked, this worked too, this worked too. Nice, that's working. Now next I want to know if the other thing that we've added, which is the ignore keys, if that works as well. And this one works only in interfaces and code. So let's have a look in the project. Let's try with interfaces. Ignore keys, and if I don't provide them, let's remove them first to see if this is working as expected. I'm going to go to a storyboard that is translated like this one here. Just going to add a new label to it. So this is a label, and we give it some, we just call it test. Never mind. And then what we're going to do is we go to the comment for localizer, and here we just leave BC ignore. And now when we run this, this should actually not be local, and like this new key should not be added here. So let's run BartyCrouch update. Nice, it's not added, just as expected. And if I go to the BartyCrouch TOML file though, and I provide these explicitly, oops. Let's copy that again. And I provide this explicitly, and I change this to be BC ignored, for example. So whatever you suggest, you customize yourself. Well, let's just go with like ignore, something like this. Just a custom one, then it should no longer work, and it should be translated. Let's see if that worked. Okay, that didn't work. With this. But is it in the paths even? Maybe that's the issue. So I'm looking for app/sources. Oh yeah, this is not even in the list. So let's go for app/supporting files. What it's called. Obviously it was not working before. Let's remove this. Let's try again. I'm expecting this to not translate it because we have the BC ignore, and it's not translating. Now if I revert that, now I'm expecting it to translate, but because we have not mentioned this ignore. Let's translate it or transform. There we go, it adds it, so exactly as expected. And now, lastly, I want to add another one. This is test 2. And in this case, I'm going to use a new one, which is ignore, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Right? Ignore, yeah. Now this new one should not be added. And if this works or not, yes, this works exactly as expected. So new options are working. Ignore keys is working, and also the subpaths to ignore is also working. This one here. Nice. Now, the last thing I want to do, I want to check is, let's imagine someone is configuring a new app with BartyCrouch and there is no TOML file yet. Well, let's just remove this. Let's remove it to trash, and then let's just act like we're just generating this newly. So let's open a new terminal, let's go to our downloads, and then to the sample application. Yes. And then in the sample application, I'm just going to run BartyCrouch, and you're gonna see that it says like, okay, this is not configured yet. You can run init though. Let's do that. BartyCrouch init. Now it has created a BartyCrouch TOML file, and we want to check it out. Let's open it in Atom and see what the contents are. I expect there to be these new entries. I expect there to be... Oh, we ran BartyCrouch, the wrong BartyCrouch, sorry for that. So we can remove the BartyCrouch tunnel again. Of course we want to run the new version, which has a different path, which is this one here. Our local version of BartyCrouch. We want to run init from it. So that's what we want to do, and then we want to run init. Now, the BartyCrouch toml file expected to have these new entries, which is not here. It's not there. So this is something we still need to fix. Let's see what we can do there. So we have the init command. The init command just runs init task handler perform. This runs default config file, build script, support file. So create default config file. Configuration, it calls into make default. It creates a toml out of that, and then it writes the file. So make default is basically what we're doing here. And there is actually some create build script and support file things that were started but not completed. Interesting. Let's turn them into actual warnings. Maybe we should just remove these because they're not doing anything yet. And no one has really asked this. Yeah. Those are features that were never implemented. Let's clean this up. So we are doing the make default. What does this do? Make default makes a toml file. So it calls into this with an empty toml string. Interesting. This again calls the make file options of the different options here with update and lint options. The update is the most important one. The maker here goes for default task. If translate options is nil, then it goes for this, otherwise for that, and then it just says update options, and here we are. Creates update options, and it calls into update and tasks. Calls into the makers here again. So we are calling into makers except for translate options. The maker here, but the maker he should actually set the subpaths to ignore. So actually the code is there. I'm not sure why this is not working. We're saying create an array. With update interfaces subpaths to ignore, or constants default subpaths to ignore. Okay, what is this exactly doing? This is toml boo updates interfaces defaults or false. Okay, I'll be back in a minute. I just need to do something quickly. Okay, back to the stream. Yeah, we were here. Okay, somehow this didn't work. So when the toml has an array for update interfaces subpaths, so if I find a value here, I reuse that. If I don't find that, then I basically go into this here, which should actually be happening here in our case. Somehow it's not happening. So we are here. Let's go to Atom here. This is the creative file. It doesn't have the new options. Although it's here, and if we call toml contents, it should also be created. init command is initting, calling into perform. Oh, Server 75, thank you very much. Dankeschön. Übrigens, wenn man den Stream einschaltet und komplett den Ton runterstellt, dann wird man nicht als Zuschauer gezählt. Also ihr müsst ein bisschen die Lautstärke hoch machen, auch wenn es sehr leise ist. Sonst wird es nicht gezählt. So, in case you're joining this and you have just stream open and you have it the sound fully muted, Twitch will not count that as a viewer, just in case you want to give me viewers by joining in. If your sound is completely turned off, then it will not count. Okay. Having that said, init task handler dot perform, and we're calling the perform method here. And this is just creating the configuration file and calling into toml contents of that, which just calls the toml contents of the other files, which calls the toml contents of the other file. So actually this should already be working, so I'm really confused why it's not. Make toml update to face return, and it does provide some. Even if this was empty, it should output an empty file. So this is really confusing why it's not working as expected. So I'm going to retry. Remove BartyCrouch.toml. Maybe we just have like a unsaved file here or something. Let me reopen that. Oh, it did work. So I was on the wrong track. So it was working the entire time. I just was not sure. I just wasn't sure about that fact. And then, okay, now it's clear. Cool. So this is working. Everything is working as expected. And then we can continue making the code. And this is some cleanup. So remove some unused code. There we go. Before I push this, let's see if the CI had passed before, because we can just merge it. Yeah. So we can push this and merge even though the CI is still running. And then we can make a release. Let's merge this. Did I forget something? I don't think so. Nice. So we can go back into the main branch and we can close the project actually. We can go back into the main branch. We can pull the latest version. We should see that it's merged. Nice. Now I can delete also this branch that I have locally. And let me also fetch the latest branches online. So the ones that are no longer there also get deleted locally. Cool. Now we're going to make a new release for BartyCrouch. And before we do that, let's also add the changes documentation for the things we have merged before. So since the last release, we have done some things here. We have merged this branch. So let's have a look at this. Okay, the issue is no longer here, but it's 238. Let's go have a look what we did, what we merged there. 238. This one here. So document list of ignored files, clean up after error. What was changed? This is just a readme change, and this is a bug fix. Remove empty temp strings folder again. This is a slight improvement. I would say we can basically copy this text, and let's just go into the changelog. Oops, this is the wrong project. Shouldn't have closed it. Well, let's go. Let's open it in Atom. just adjusting the changelog. Here we are, and we are in the changelog here. All notable changes to this project will be documented in this file, blah, blah, blah. So something was fixed, which is less situations where the empty temp strings folder continues to exist. I saw this still happening, so I don't think it's entirely fixed, but this makes it happen less or less likely, and this was provided by Benjamin Earhart. So let's give them some appraisal here. Actually, let's link to the pull request first. 238. Author is Benjamin Earhart. We'll link to that profile. So what else did we have here? This was merged. Then we have done ignore explicitly mentioned folders. I think this is another fix by Benjamin Earhart that I merged myself in a different way. So let's go have a look at that. I have closed another one here. I think it was this one here. Yes. And yeah, let's also mention that. So in this case, don't ignore explicitly mentioned folders, even though they might contain otherwise. Yeah, let's just copy that text. And this is a fix too. Don't ignore explicitly mentioned folders, even though they might contain otherwise ignored folders as the parent folders. Explicitly mentioned folders in path options, even though they might contain otherwise ignored folders as their parent folders. Even though they might contain... Okay, I think with the new feature this can be rephrased. So the sub has to ignore. What did I actually change? Let me have a look here, just to be sure I didn't break anything. Here's to ignore, call file search. Should skip. Oh, I have actually re-implemented this, but I think we still have the same feature functionality. Yeah. So the subpath, maybe we don't have to document it here. Instead, we just mention them as being part of implementing that new feature. Although that's not the new thing. Okay. Okay. Make sure. Don't ignore explicitly mentioned folders and path, even though they might. Okay. Only apply. Ignores on subpaths of explicitly mentioned folders and path options. Don't ignore any paths that are explicitly only apply ignores on subpaths of explicitly mentioned folders and path options. Don't ignore any paths that are explicitly mentioned. Something like that. Not sure if this is any more clear than what we had before, but this is the same. Other, just the pull request link is different. 240. Cool. So we are attributing the people who should be attributed. Let's see if there's any more changes. So learning, not worth mentioning, and then it's our new feature. Cool. That's all. And let's commit that. So add missing, contribute, alters and changes to change block file. And we can already start creating a new release. So we're in the process now of making a new release for BartyCrouch. Anyone who hasn't seen that might just be able to learn something here. So I'm using git flow, which I had initialized in git fork with this button. And for a new release, I create a new release branch. I give it the name of the version that I want to have, and the last version was 4.8.0. And because we have new features, we want to have it for 9.0 now. Let's create a new release branch, and in that release branch basically what I'm doing is all the steps that I have also documented for myself on the GitHub repo itself. So if I just go to the ignore and just scroll down to the contributing section, you can see what steps I have to do for a new release. Okay, so first we have to make the new release because it's the after release checklist. Let's make the new release. For making that, basically I have to create a new version in the changelog. The new version is 4.9.0. Our date is today is the 21st. Then I delete all the things that are empty, all the sections that are empty. And I basically create a new unreleased section where everything is empty. So this is the first change, which is the changelog. And the next is we have to update the version everywhere. And we can just search for the 4.8 because we have 4.8 as the version, and just replace it everywhere. So BartyCrouch pod spec, we change it to 4.9.0. Everything else looks all right. Then this is this BartyCrouch formula. We will change that later. This is after the release. Then we change it in the README. We also change it in the main Swift file. And last but not least, in the info plist file. So that's all the changes we need to do here to update the release version. Good. This looks good as well. So I tend to call this bump version number and create new changelog section. And this is basically all I need to do. Now I can basically finalize the release branch, and I do this with git flow, which will merge it automatically into the main and the versions branch, which is all we want basically. So let me merge that. Push that to the main, and also let's push the versions branch to the versions branch online. Note that it has automatically created a tag, and I have pushed that tag. Now we have technically a new version already online on GitHub, but there's some more steps we need to do. First, we need to run make portable zip, because for users through CocoaPods, we have added support to making that. Let me reset this here. So we have to run make portable zip, and this will basically package the whole BartyCrouch tool into a zip file to be included via CocoaPods. And the zip file is basically called portable BartyCrouch.zip in that folder. Let's go back to that folder. Portable Barty, that's the new zip file. It's just created. And next step is create a new release with the text from the changelog and attach to it the zip file. Let's do that. So our changelog changelog is here. This is the contents of the changelog of the last release. Let's copy that and let's create a new release here. Or maybe we should keep this open so we can continue here, but I'll just go BartyCrouch. Let's just go like this, go to releases. I draft a new release, I choose the tag 490, which is not there. Okay, seems like my settings here are not proper. Yeah, push all tags was not checked. Let's do that. Now let's refresh. There we go. And I don't give it a title, it gets automatically the title of that name. I just add the context of the changelog here, and we need to attach the file. Portable BartyCrouch. And this is not a pre-release, so we can basically just publish the release once it's uploaded. And we have a new release online. Looks good. Next up, we want to continue here, which is pod trunk push. So we push the CocoaPods changes and inform the CocoaPods about the new version. Let's just run that. I hope it's gonna work because this is a different user, but I have already signed into CocoaPods on this user too, so I think it should be working. Well, as long as this is building, let's actually continue with the next steps. Update tag and revision in formula / BartyCrouch. Let's do that. Oh, it's already done. So it says it has built, and congrats, BartyCrouch 4.90 successfully published. So it's also published on CocoaPods now. Next up, we want to update the formula and update it also via Homebrew. So we need a tag and revision. The tag we know is 490. The revision of the tag is this commit SHA. And I just go here, go to the formula. I just update it here to 90. Update the revision here as well. So we've done that. I want to commit and push that change. So in case somebody installs it through the formula on the GitHub, on the BartyCrouch project itself. So update formula. Let's go Homebrew formula to 490. And last but not least, last step we need to do is run this command. Let me copy it. Reset. This is the command, and here also we need the tag and the revision. So let's copy the revision again of that tag. And the tag name is 490. The revision is this one. Let's enter. I hope this works. Sometimes it's used to fail, and if it fails, it's a lot of work to get it working again. So I really hope that this will just work. And this is basically a script written by the Homebrew team that makes it really easy to do exactly this, to create a pull request on the Homebrew core, which updates BartyCrouch to 490, which is exactly what's happening here. So this worked exactly as we expected, and we have a pull request now on the Homebrew core team. As soon as they have reviewed, you can see the changes here, very simple. As soon as they have reviewed and all the CI has passed, CI is going to run here now. Then basically they will merge it, and the new version will be available to everyone who's using BartyCrouch through Homebrew. As long as this is not merged, it's not going to be available, but this is all I can do on my side to make the release complete. So now users from CocoaPods can already use it right away. Users who have tapped into the BartyCrouch formula here, they can use it now as well. And as soon as this gets merged, everyone else can use it as well. So what we have done, let's summarize. Updated the atomic content tests. That's definitely something we've done. Then we have actually go back into our commits. We have, we've done so much today. Updated the tests, remove a static non-configurable ignorance of. Let's go with finalized extraction of all new options, plus document them. We also updated the changelog with all changes before. Forgot to add. And then we made a new release of BartyCrouch. Yay! I think that's definitely some progress there. Do we have any blockers? Yeah, still Xcode doesn't show, can't run tests. Can't run the tests in BartyCrouch. Made debugging tests hard, and we actually finalized extraction of new options. We have also fixed an issue with the subpaths to ignore when multi-part path is provided. And this was done with tests. Learnings, any new learnings? Not on my side at least, maybe some of the viewers. Next steps, I think we have made a release, so next steps would be have a look into more issues reported, or, and that's definitely something we can do also, have a look into other open source libraries. I do have one in my mind, which is AnyLint. I'm not sure if we should continue with that, but that's like the BartyCrouch release we wanted to make. Nice. This is from last time. Cool, now we're in a situation where we have to decide what to work on next. Let me link also to BartyCrouch here. How much do we have? Like half an hour left. What can we do in that half hour? We could go through some more issues and try to close them or explain or things like that. Oh, what we definitely need to do is, because we have now made a release with the changes, we should inform the users who were waiting for that release in the issues and pull requests, etc. about that. And also maybe in the release that we just made, we should mention that we made this live. Let me actually add the comment here. This is not working. Did I rename this? So keyboard, text. Oh, this has disappeared. I used to have some comment error. Let's try to get it back. So what was the last comment I once recently updated? There we go. This is basically what I had added there. I don't know why it disappeared. Not on my way, but instead sick. Not sure. Okay, let's try again. There we go. It's not really a comment though. This release was made. Cool. Now let's inform the users who are waiting for this and also related stuff. So for requests, we closed that were related. I think that's the most important. This yes, this one, also this one. Everything else I think was already released before. Let's close the other things here. Oh, so many tabs open now. So xlif export considering BC ignore. That's out of scope. Make all static strings configurable. Yeah. Released in version 4.9.0. Let's actually also mention that. This was just released in 490. Yeah, let's add the signature. Okay, I don't like that this is multiple lines. This command was written during my regular. This could better. Still not in one line. I think because I've made the text bigger. I think the normal text size should work fine. Yeah, let's just keep it, never mind. 490, same here. Oops. Oh god. Okay, and this also. Thanking here the developer who has provided some things here into making this happen. And now I think the release is complete. I think that's part of the release, to inform the people who have contributed to it, to know that their new feature can now be yeah, basically supported by BartyCrouch by default, and they don't have to like use a specific branch of BartyCrouch or something like that. But the question remains what to do next. Let's have a look at the different Flyingsoft open source stuff here and see what we can do. Let's have a look at the to-dos actually. So do we have any to-dos? Close all BartyCrouch issues reported. We're still on that. Make all fixed strings of BartyCrouch configurable. That's just something we released. Reindent the whole project. Yeah, that's something we could do now. Let's do that. So we're on the main branch. Let's open a new feature branch. Actually, maybe it's not really needed. Let's open it anyways. So reindent. So the simplest way to reindent is to actually use Swift format, I think, because Swift format can just reindent the whole code, the whole project. You could also go into every single file and reindent every single file by using Control-I. But I think I'm going to go with the Swift format approach, and we already have created Swift format configuration file for our open focus timer that we work on Wednesdays. So let's just copy that over to this project. And this is the Swift format one. And let's just copy it into here. And then let's just reapply, let's just apply it. And for applying it, we want to actually run it via the command line. And the command that we're using in this project, we have created a build script. So let's have a look at that build script. And this build script we're actually running in the pre-commit hook. And the build script has this command, which just reformats the whole code that is provided in these folders. We also do some SwiftGen and BartyCrouch here, which we don't need in this project. But what we will want to have in this project as well is the Swift lint that we had before. So let's actually create also a build script, because it's going to be more convenient. Okay, so we want to have a new build script file, build script.sh, and it starts something like this. And it's basically what's also going to be called here. So let's move that command over here as well. Let's first run Swift. I hope they're not going to have problems with each other and they're just going to work. Let's see what folders we need to check. So we want to check sources folder, that makes sense. Test folder makes sense. Maybe the demo one, but maybe not. I think demo is not important, so let's skip the demo. And the package.swift, let's also check that. let's do them in place. So let's do this one first, because this adjusts the code, and then we want to see if SwiftLint gives any warnings when this one is applied. We can already go here and see if there is a spaces amount. Okay. Specified here, 2 spaces, 4 spaces. Line length, we can actually go and see the line length is set to 120 here. Let's set it to 120 here too. Okay, maybe it's duplicated, but anyways, next thing we need to do in order to be able to run the build script, we have to make the build script file executable. So let's actually change the mod, make +X, and say we have what's the name of the file? Build script, of course. Build script. Now it's executable, and now I also just want to change the pre-commit, what this is doing, to just calling the build script. Cool. Now let's try this. Let me just check if everything is looking good here. So we want to add this, we want to adjust this, and add this. And now I'm going to run the build script file. Let's see what happens. So we see 135 serious violations when we run SwiftLint, because Swift format has done a lot of changes. And one of the changes is applying 2 spaces. So that's what I meant by applying 2 spaces, because in Swift format we have configured tab width to be 2. And I prefer Swift format over SwiftLint, so I'm just going to ignore every kind of error in SwiftLint now. So we are in the main here. This looks good. This is also only about indentation, looks good. Basically everything I think is going to look good. Just making sure that nothing serious has changed. Oh, that's a lot of changes here in the code. Even the guardlet, how it's structured. But it's nice. Didn't have to do anything, it just all happened automatically. Important part is that nothing changes on the right, and it's just indentation changes. This, yeah, looks good. It added also comma. You have like arrays. That's a huge file. Huge file. It should definitely be split into several smaller ones. But we're depending on Swift syntax anyways here, and also on extract log strings or gen strings. And those are dependencies that I actually want to remove if I really make a big kind of change. So it's more probable that I do a more or less a rewrite at some point. But yeah, that's a different topic. Not for this stream, definitely. I've never seen Swift format remove any code or something like that, so I'm pretty confident that this is not going to introduce any issues. And so far everything looks good as well. But safe is safe, so let's check. It also has a weird thing where it adds 2 spaces, and when you have like a comment in a line. But most changes are looking good. And it also always splits, when you have an init method, all the parameters into their own lines. I think multiple files will become much longer. So I might have to turn off the SwiftLint warning for long files. Let's see about that. But it's all looking good. No problematic changes. Ooh. Okay, this is just static data. Just test data. And I think I was working around an issue with Swift Package Manager not supporting resources back then, so I had to add resources as plain strings, just their plain string data. And I think it was like basically the entire structure of files, which I added that way. It's really ugly, but it worked. And there was no other way, because I wanted to support Swift Package Manager. And I did. Cool, we checked all the files, and this is just the reindentation. So apply Swift format style, including 2 spaces indentation, which is I think the biggest change. Now, when we try to commit this will fail because SwiftLint is going to be run as well, and that still has a lot of errors. So I want to see what errors we have in SwiftLint, and we have them here too. I think this is, let's make that full screen. So we have closing brace, white space valuation, empty line required after closing curly, and let's just turn them off. I think that's the easiest way to fix it, because I want to switch to Swift format in the long run anyways. Let's just turn on all the ones, turn off all the ones that are not compatible. So we had 135 issues. Let's see how many we have left now. We have 92 now, and the one statement position else and catch should be on the same line. This is not something we want. Statement position, we have to turn that off, it looks like. Let's also keep that alphabetically ordered. And maybe we don't need to run this. Let's just run SwiftLint strict. So we have 92, I believe. Now we have 58 left. Tuple index violation, prevent unwrapping tuples by their index. That actually makes sense. String file updater 200. Let's see about that. So string file updater 200. Oh, this is just a this is not a tuple reference, so it's just a false positive, and that means we should just turn this off to keep it simple. I mean, I've created them quite some time ago. 56 left. This is white space around range operators, like in strings file updater 200. Yeah, this is exactly the difference, which is what we don't want. SwiftLint, how many are left now? I think it was 58 or something, 53. Opening brace. Opening braces should be preceded by a single space on the same line as the declaration. Demo tests 133. 43. This, I see what they're saying, but I think this is okay. So let's remove the error, opening brace. Oh, opening brace is just QRST. Let's just ignore it that way. 53, let's see how many now. 43. We're getting closer. Function body length. Yeah, that I was already suspecting that the body length and things like that we would run into problems with that. I think we can also just change the... They are parameterizable. So function body length. Never mind. Let's just remove it entirely. How many are left now? 40. Superfluous disable command. This is a nice one actually. And I actually want to remove all of them. So maybe let's search for all Swiftlint disable. And let's remove all of them. Actually, first try, maybe we can keep that. Never mind, let's just fix the ones that are superfluous. And the superfluous one here is in command line actor 271. Command line actor 271. So this one seems to be superfluous. But is it really? Never mind, 40 series, 39. So one is gone. Superfluous. Also in command line actor 48. Next, command line actor line length violation 271. Do we have line length here too? Yes, it's 120. Command line actor 271. So this is just a string, and I think what we can drop now is we can basically trust on this line length and just remove it here instead. So line length, let's just remove this and disable it. Line length. Only 10 left, so most of them was line length. Command line actor, file length. Now we have file length, and I already said I want to definitely turn that off as well. So let's disable it here. Now we have less than 10, 9, okay. Trailing comma. In macro translator 82. Trailing comma is actually something we want to have in list, so that's definitely something I want to turn off as well. It's already being checked by Swift format pretty well. I think it's here. It's getting quite less now. Only one left. This is init task handler closure spacing violation. Init task handler free. Init task handler free. And oh, we have two white spaces here. That's weird. That's run Swiftlint should work now, but it might be that Swift format did apply that and will apply it again. Yeah, it's applying it again. So Swift format wants to have after this two white spaces. So maybe we just do it like this, and then both will be happy. Good, there we go. Okay, Swiftlint configuration changes, fix. There we go. Apply Swift format including two white spaces. Adjust Swiftlint config. Apply Swift format. Just Swift format. There we go. So huge changes to the project with this one commit, and therefore we also want to have a pull request just to be sure that everything is still passing. Also on the CI. And I have pushed it now. Let's create a pull request. Let's go to BartyCrouch, create that pull request, and Swift. Why doesn't it allow this? But I can see, maybe I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I was 6 too much. Maybe we can just adjust the length setting that I have here. The warning setting, I mean. There we go. So load them 80, and it was 6 too many. Maybe let's end it at 72, something like that. That's the high limit, and maybe we get a warning at, I think, maybe 64. I don't know. Anyways, applies new. I mean, it's already in the title. Let's just create this. Maybe we should add that we created it in the stream, and that's all. In this case, this PR was cool. Let's see if the CI passes. Once this passes, we can merge it, and then everyone who's making changes will already have all the changes applied. So we can go back to our checklist and check that. And also, let's see if it's still open. I'm not sure. Let's also document what we did just now in our summary. So we have renetted whole BartyCrouch project, 2 white spaces and Swift format styling. Nice. What else do we have? Set up a pre-commit hook for BartyCrouch. Already completed. Maybe we can document that as well. So no to-dos left for today, except for continuing to close BartyCrouch issues. So maybe we just want to have a look into some more for 10 minutes or so, and then we're going to close this. So this is going to run. Let's have a look at some more issues here. We did start this last time, and I'm going to sort by upvotes. And we have priority, 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 all of them applied on these. So we have commented, and this one doesn't. So let's just open a couple of tabs here and just go through them one by one. So this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's just see if we can get these 10 done. So restrict code, default to keys to development language. I already answered this, so sorry for not getting back to you earlier. Each time I saw this issue, I didn't quite understand what you needed. So to rephrase the expected feature in my own words, I commented this on April 2020. Want to have an option like which turns are, I think this makes sense, and using the keys really makes sense here. Then you would need to, I like the design. Do you already have an implementation ready to review? After looking at the new configuration, I would propose a configuration like this. So there is some details here, and let's read the initial request. So when generating strings files without the -k option, the keys value is set to, which is good because it lets detect missing localization, but it's also tedious because the development language string file needs to be edited too. When generating strings files with the -k, the provided default value, please restart and try again, is used as the keys value in the strings file, which is great. Except that in fact not the key is used as default, but the default value, which is what we want anyway. However, this is also true for all languages that are not the default development language, which again makes it impossible to automatically detect missing translations. So the German strings file does also get the English default value. Do you know of a way to restrict the effects of the -k option to the language that is also the development language of the project? It would help us a lot, and I would also be willing to implement a patch if you can point me in the right direction. I managed to get the desired behavior using the modifications command line actor Swift shown below. Of course, we shouldn't assume that English is everyone's development language, right? Okay. Oh, that's interesting. They have like a different kind of font for the keywords, which is by the way easy to do if you want to know. So I could actually just go here, go to the settings, and just go to themes, and I am in this theme now. I could just go to keywords and just change the font here, and I would just apply to keywords like papyrus, and then you will see them, just only them in that. Well, let's go back. Hope this is the right one. I think it was bold, semi-bold. Let me check back. So keywords is semi-bold mono. Keywords is mono semi-bold. Makes sense. Cool. Okay. What do you think making a good API for this? So what they were doing is strings file updater. If is development language, how strings file contains, and then they have add new value as empty default to keys, and is okay. Some logic here of looking at the new configuration format. I'll propose something like this: default to keys false. Default to keys for all languages true. Ah, I see. So they want to use the key as well. Just default to base would also benefit from the same config option. Sounds like a niche one. How many upvotes? One upvote, which is by someone else. Okay. This is interesting. I would like to ask if they're still interested in this feature. Maybe they really don't need it anymore, but this is interesting. So, okay, priority wise, I can imagine. Okay, so I want to use default keys. Okay, I think the reason why I don't think this is very high of a priority is because when you use the pro localization workflow that I have linked to in the README, you can actually just use the strings, the Swift gen generated as enum, which is the L10N enum. You can use that, and you can provide BartyCrouch.translate and then use the transform option. And you can, in that transform option, provide a specific value for a specific language, like for English. And if you do that, it will only add that to the English translations. And that way, I think this is because this is very old. This is kind of not really relevant anymore. So I will just ask the author here. I just had a look into this again. And reviewing it now, I am under the impression that with the pro localization workflow, let's link to it, this blog post. So with the pro localization workflow, you can simply write the code, write code like BartyCrouch translate, and then some key translations English, not big written, English your translation, which BartyCrouch will turn automatically into N dot, let's do sum here, dot sum dot key, and also it will only place your translation string you provided to the English localizable.strings file, not in any other. They will stay empty. Doesn't this also solve your use case? Nice. We have prioritized and given some answer. I think we can continue on. It's definitely enhancement and priority low, I would say. Next one. Using, okay, I think that's the last one actually, because we're running out of time. Using custom function in Objective-C. In our library, we have to use a custom function, which is a macro, like ds-localized string, getting a key and comment. Okay. When we run BartyCrouch lint -x from the build script, we got the following error. Bad entry in file. Argument is not a little string. Oh, I see. They're using a parameter there. Is there more right way to use a custom function? Thanks. Have the same error. BartyCrouch run script, compile sources, then the key of localize is not a string. Okay, I think this was mentioned elsewhere, so let me first search for that. Dynamic, maybe. Exception improvement about controls, localized add possibility. Okay. Extract log strings is also not mentioned here. Extract log strings. This is basically the feature that we're using. So let's see if we can find documentation on that from Apple. Managing strings files. I think they have not really documented it, but they have documented gen strings. I'll just answer like that. So pot. Hey, sorry for getting back so late, but I still want to answer your question, also in case someone else comes across this. So the thing is that BartyCrouch doesn't itself traverse any code or IB files. Instead, it just reuses a tool that Apple is shipping, part of Xcode, namely gen strings. Or actually, the new one is extract log strings. Previously gen strings. I have to turn off autocorrect, that's really bad. I think all my settings were set back. I had actually already configured all these. Correct spelling automatically, no. Period, no. Okay, previously gen strings. And that tool does only support literal string literals. It does not support variables that are of type string. It would also be hard to detect the actual value of a variable just by reading the code. So I fear that what you requested is out of scope of of this project. Note that also the title of this. Okay, maybe I have to just edit it. Using custom function with dynamic string variable in Objective-C. If you have any idea how you could solve this in an easy way, feel free to ping me. Ping me though. Oh no. Why is this not working now? Do I have to keep this on to get auto-completion? Seriously? Oh goodness. Okay. So we have answered this, and I would say I can close this. Yeah, I'll just close it. Because there's nothing we can do here. It's just out of scope. Maybe we can mark it as out of scope. Out of scope, out of scope. There's a won't fix. Let's put won't fix. Cool. So that's that. We have closed two more, or commented on one and closed one issue. Let's document that as well. So closed one issue with comment and commented another possibly resolved too. And I think that's that for this stream. And next steps, we have said that we want to have look into more issues. Not sure if we're going to continue only with BartyCrouch. We might also get into something else, like into AnyLint. I'll think about that. I'll definitely make sure that I post what I'm planning to do on the next stream. But this is it for this stream. And let me quickly check if there's anybody we can rate online. I don't see anybody online who we could rate who's working also on tech stuff. So thank you for joining everyone this stream, and we're going to continue next week on Friday at the same time with different project probably. Maybe we will also look into some more issues. We'll see. I'll definitely post about it on Twitter. And as a reminder, as I said at the beginning of the stream, so I am going to introduce something new to all my streams, starting with a stream on Wednesday next week, where we're going to continue working on our open focus timer application. And the new thing I want to do is basically review apps from some indie developers. I'm going to ask for interested developers on Twitter. So if you don't follow me there, definitely make sure to follow. Let me also add the link to the chat. So make sure to follow me there if you want to be informed about the next stream's contents, and also if you want to reach out to me because you want your app to be reviewed by me, then definitely contact me on Twitter so I can plan that a little bit. And I will do that probably next Wednesday at the start of the stream. The next stream is on Wednesday at 7 p.m. The next stream next week on Friday, and as always on 2 p.m. So anybody who's watching who's not following me on Twitch yet, please follow me on Twitch to support me. And other than that, I thank you very much for joining in. I thank everyone who wrote in the chat. Have all a nice day, have all a nice weekend, and see you all in the next stream. Bye.